us. It's April 24th, 2025. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm Luke Farron. We have with us Tom Kempner, Joyce Giffra, Linda Munn. Join us remotely, Carol Zacharias. Special treat tonight, Eileen Powers, village attorney, is standing in. Thanks for joining us, Eileen.
Thank you.
Let's get into it. First case, 3195. So this is 121 Lee Avenue. The board will remember we approved a variance a few months ago to expand the side yard of the house. And then they were in, I think, the last two hearings with a really great landscape package and wetlands package. The determination is written favorably. So an aye will be to approve the wetland special permit.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote on it. Second, yeah. Okay, super. Linda, how do you vote?
Yay.
Okay. Joyce?
Yay.
Thomas?
Yay.
Carol?
Yay.
Okay. Same for me. Okay, so the wetland special permit is approved. We'll go to another wetland special permit, and I think, do we have Lisa on?
He's coming in right now.
Okay, super.
And while Lisa comes in, I'll note that case number 3190, there was a last-minute adjournment request.
Oh,
they should have
okay.
in your packet. So I believe they're asking for an adjournment until the June 10th meeting.
Okay, so I'll move to accept the adjournment. If we have a second?
Yes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Alex, when is the next hearing?
The next meeting I have on the calendar is May 22nd, and followed by June 10th and June 26th.
Okay. We have no early meeting in May.
I have Tuesday, May 13th on the calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong. You're right. It is May 13th, followed by May 22nd, June 10th, and June 26th.
All right. So did they request May 13th? Or
I believe their letter, which you should have, I believe it says June 10th, but
June 10th.
if
Okay.
you could double check.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In that
June
case,
10th, okay,
then
great.
we'll move to case 3197, 85 Down East Lane.
Jim Walker from InterScience, here for 85 Down East Lane. We were asked to provide two things. The first of which is a long environmental assessment form, which we submitted. The second thing, I'm going to ask John to put up on the screen. And it is access to the dock. Access to the dock goes straight along the side yard setback till we get to the fence, and then we take a little turn and we hit the nature paths that are through the wetlands buffer. And my thought is that that's a perfect place to turn and access the dock for the use of the property owners. So you have that in your packet, and it's on that screen. The little turn allows it to go directly to the path. I think it's the most efficient way to. Board should be aware, when you cut a path for a dock through a wetlands buffer, you don't kill the wetlands grasses. They're simply mowed. So the little blue stem and the switchgrass that's there will be maintained at a low height, but it'll still function as the same wetlands buffer, and that will provide access to the proposed dock. And other than that, I don't have anything else, except I'm here to answer any questions. Mary Jane Asado is here with me. John Ciccarello from
Hey, John.
our office with the diagram.
Okay, super. Legal question for Eileen. You're ready. Can a property with no primary structure have an accessory structure?
I mean, I just was looking at this today. Generally speaking, you don't have an accessory use without a primary use, but a lot of the municipality, I don't really know the history of Southampton Village, but a lot of the municipalities on the east end allowed docks without a principal use. So it would be an exception to what's generally accepted.
Okay.
So do you know any of the history, Alex?
Yeah, I can add that I raised that question with the building inspector, and he felt that in Southampton Village, docks had been traditionally exempt from that. You may be familiar with a number of docks on the north side of Meadow Lane that are on otherwise vacant properties that are owned by nearby property owners.
Okay. Thank you for refreshing my memory, because
Right.
now I know we did touch on that last time. Okay. Lisa, thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, so I apologize, I did not see the FEF added to the file on the Dropbox, but I'm sure that Alice can confirm that it's been submitted, and I'll take a look at that. I think this addressed the only real question that the board had raised, that about improving and making the access so that it wasn't really a dock to nowhere, but it connected and made logical sense for the residences and didn't create unnecessary, unplanned for cutting through the prepared wetlands, the revegetated wetlands to get access to the dock. So in general, I think we went over before what a successful wetlands revegetation plan has been proposed here, and the dock is in conformance with the design standards that the DEC has, as well as that the village enforces related to what the open kind of nature of docks in this to preserve the wetlands.
Okay, Lisa, thank you so much. Would there be any conditions that you would want to add to a decision, a positive decision?
I think that the standard conditions that the dock be constructed as per the submitted plans and the all required permits from the other agencies be obtained and adhered to would be sufficient here.
Okay, super. Carol, do you have any questions for the applicants or any clarifications? That was a no, I think. I think you're muted.
I apologize. No,
That's
I have no problem. This has been helpful. Thank you.
Okay, super. Linda, how about you?
No, pretty clear.
Okay. Tom, Joyce?
No.
No? Okay.
No, thank you.
So, in that case, I'll move to close the application for deliberation and written decision.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just aside, Counselor, we do have the New York State DEC permit as well as the other permits. Would it be helpful for you to write your decision for us to give you copies?
Sure,
if you don't?
that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. And Lisa, I made those forms available on the Dropbox, so you can have them for preparation of the permit for the next meeting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So, this is approval, denial, in your guys?
The dock is conforming, and Alex, to be clear, if this were a swimming pool and not a dock, we would need to have a primary residence on the same lot.
That's my understanding.
For sure.
But because this is a dock, and the dock is in conformance with all the environmental stuff, I'm inclined to be in favor.
Joyce?
Yeah, I think it generally looks good to me.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Linda?
We've made assurances that they will keep the wetlands sacrosanct, and that's what we're most concerned about. So,
Yeah, I like the turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, more connected to the main property. Okay. Carol, did you have an opinion one way or another?
I would agree with you all. The turn is minimal. They're going to mow, not level, and it's consistent with the practices of allowing docks. So for all three of those reasons, I would agree.
Okay, I agree also. So Eileen, if you could ask
I will.
Brian to.
I will, yes.
Okay.
And I think
Do we need a
Lisa would be
motion?
preparing the,
I think you need.
The motion to close for written decision. That
Oh,
was
and then gotcha.
Does Lisa usually do that, Alex?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
for
because it's a
wetlands permit, Lisa Rickmers would typically prepare that, like the one that you just adopted.
okay.
So
Right.
Lisa, do you have all the information that you would need at this point? Ooh, we might have just
Did
lost
we lose
Barry.
everybody?
Is that question directed towards me?
Yes, sorry, Lisa, that
Oh,
was for
sorry.
you. Do you have enough
Got it.
information to prepare for the next meeting?
Yes, I have the information needed to prepare for the next meeting, and I'll also, Alex, as we've noted previously, there is a trick in the Southampton Village Code where tidal wetlands permits are type 1 actions. So I will prepare the seeker as well for that. I do not believe a coordinated review is needed because at this point, all the DEC permitting is in place. So I don't believe there's any other involved agencies. So I think we can just proceed with preparing that decision.
Great.
Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Okay, first new case of the night, 3199 2020 Meadow. Hey, see you, Mac. How's it going, Tony?
Good. How are you? Anthony Pasca, Essex, Hector, Angel, Natalia, and Pasca for the applicant. And CMX Sammy is here too. He's going to be handling the visuals and explaining sort of the details of the proposal. What I'd like to start with is just to kind of remind the board, we did have a prior application. Just want to give this background that back in 2023, we had presented an application to the board that was a little bit more involved than this one because it included wetland relief in the front yard. There's a wetland setback that affects the front yard, and we were proposing a septic system and some changes that triggered a whole domino effect of front yard relief. We started that process in early 2023, spent the better part of 2023 in front of the board. It was closed at the end of 2023, and then things went a little bit sideways. I'm not going to get into it because it's really sort of water under the bridge.
Right.
Different board, different chairman, different consultant, different village attorney at the time, but a decision was made at that point to withdraw the application and kind of take a step back and a breather. And what CMAC will explain is that he did a couple of things. One was to start from a baseline of what was the as of right work that could be approved by the building department and the ARB without the need for any variances at all. And so he'll explain that part of it. And then we worked with the clients to look at what were the changes to the seaward side of the house, which triggered the Dolliver line relief. So after CMAC kind of explains that, I'll get into the variances that are left and make our case.
Sounds great.
Okay?
Good evening, board members. Let me get my bearings here.
Okay, your house is the one with the white roof on the last slide, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, there we go. Your question?
No.
Which
The-
house are we?
the one
is
next
the
to it.
House
subject-
with the
To the
orange clay roof.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, that's it. So the house on the right
With
is
the
our
tennis
neighbor.
court at kind of a 45-degree angle.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct.
Sorry, I missed.
Not at all. That's our neighbor. The White House is the neighbor to the east.
Yeah.
We have neighbors on either side of us, closer to the Dolliver line, actually. We're set back further from those neighbors as far as their proximity to the Dolliver line. Picking up where Tony left, basically after taking our application off from the ZBA, we did pursue an as-of-right application with the ARB. We did get approvals for that, basically short of anything that needed a variance. Owners basically were not happy with what they could achieve with that as far as investing in this property. We're coming back to you now, showing exactly what the variances for that Dolliver line are. And primarily, our work is on the ocean side of the property, nothing to do with the wetland side. So there is no wetland application here. This is Dolliver variance. I will walk you through a number of drawings here. Let me see, first of all, as far as increasing the size of the drawings here. So what we see over here, our site plan. First of all, as far as Dolliver line, you can see to your left, this is the full property over here. We are basically, the crest of dune is somewhere around there. Dolliver line is this red line over here. 550 linear feet away from the crest of dune is the Dolliver line. The building itself is about 620 linear feet from there. It's basically 2 football fields. The Dolliver line was established when there was no crest of dune back in the I don't have an exact date.
Wait, aren't there
Early
2
80s.
crests of dune out
There
there?
are 3 crests
Three.
of dunes.
Okay.
3 layers of dunes.
And the
basically.
Dolliver's on the first one, and then there are 2
And then
between the
2
Dolliver and the
correct.
ocean.
Correct. So we're historically speaking, we've achieved quite a number of dunes since the establishment of Dolliver. I'm going to walk you through basically the area between the 100-foot Dolliver setback and what's basically triggering the ZBA variance. I'm showing also a few renderings here for you. This is a roof plan of what we're proposing. What you see in orangish color is the existing house. Also areas, and this line here is the 100-foot Dolliver setback there, right there. And certain area, everything that you see here as far as building is within the footprint of the existing house as far as lot coverage. We're converting some of this lot coverage to GFA. And I'll walk you specifically what those areas are. To give you a better idea of how to read what's existing and what's being proposed, everything in orange is existing. What you see in gray is being proposed. And a majority of that gray area is actually a covered porch, which doesn't even require variance. And again, when it comes to the floor plans, I'll specifically identify the areas that are GFA related. I'm also going to go through a few 3D renderings showing the same concept of what's being proposed on the ocean side facing northeast. And this orange shows exactly what is existing, and the whitish areas are what's being proposed. So primarily it's like we're squaring up roofs within the context of the existing building. There's that porch, of course, that doesn't need a variance. The connection to the boardwalk is shifted 8 feet westwards from where it is right now. That's again, and then filling up area underneath an existing GFA on the second floor at that point. And again, squaring up a roof in that area. Just show you. Here's another view facing northwest. Again, what's being proposed and the relationship of what's being proposed to what's existing. Again, everything in orange is existing. Now, I want to also show you this area over here, which is the existing deck. We're actually removing all this and pushing back the new porch and deck area further back from where it is right now. So we're actually setting further back from where Dolliver line is in relationship to what the existing structure is. I also have prepared some drawings with numbers for you guys so that you could get a better idea as far as floor plan. This is what you see over here is the boundary of the existing structure. We're shaving this section over here off and pushing back away from the Dolliver line. This is, in orange, is the existing house. And the connection to the boardwalk is being shifted 8 feet westwards. And the pool from the second floor deck is shifted to the ground level, which is you see it over here. 290 square feet of it is basically in this area. In no area have we increased the setbacks from the Dolliver line based on what's existing. If anything, we've reduced it. In this 100-foot Dolliver setback, we have the same lot coverage that we used to have. We've not increased the lot coverage. The GFA has increased in this area, and those are the areas that we're requesting the variance. You can see again over here, I'll pass this drawing because this is what we went to the ARB and got an approval as of right, but the next drawing shows both upper level and lower level. This is the lower level. Areas in gray are what are subjected to the variance request. Areas in light orange is what was approved by ARB, and the dark orange is the existing. That's on the ground floor. You can see the pool also shifted to the ground level. On the upper level, it's primarily squaring up some existing rooms, which you see over these two areas that fall within the variance request.
And the beach is up?
Beach is up, correct, yes. So again, none of these new additions are increasing the setback to the Dolliver line, and the total square footage basically, you can see over here. Let me see if I can.
Wait, they're not decreasing the setback?
We are decreasing it in certain areas. Like for instance, you can see this. Let me enlarge this drawing. See if I can. There we go. You can see this is this red dotted line is the existing deck. This is the new deck. So we're shifting the deck actually.
So you're increasing the setback from the
Dolliver line. Yes,
Okay,
correct.
that's what I thought.
Correct. Yes. Mr. Griffin.
So I think you said decrease.
I didn't understand.
Decreasing coverage, I think, is what
yes.
CMAC meant.
I was
Okay.
decreasing the
Thank
coverage, increasing the setback from Dolliver. Yes. You can see the areas that we're requesting variances spelled out in each one of these gray areas. 385 square feet here, 1,385. These are all within the existing footprint of the existing building. Nothing new is being added as far as the footprint of this house. And on the upper level, again, on the existing deck, we're squaring off 2 rooms, 214 on one side and 120 on the other side. Basically, the totality of it as far as lot coverage equals what was existing, and as far as then I have also tables here showing basically the square footages in the GFA areas. We're adding 2,094 in the 100-foot Dolliver setback we're requesting a variance for, and existing is 2,478 square feet.
So those are decks or
Those
rooms?
are GFAs. Those are GFAs.
Sorry, where does GFAs is gross floor area, but
Gross
that means
floor
a
area.
deck or a room? Or?
No, that means an interior room. That's a habitable room.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you. I'm not
a
an
lot
architect,
coverage, no.
sorry.
Yes, no, not at all.
CMAC, can I bring you back to your page P1.4, the rendering?
Yep. The 3D rendering?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This one?
No, it's white and it's the proposed view looking northwest, I guess. We're standing on the dune. Yeah, that one right there. Yep, exactly.
Let's see, 1 second. This one?
Yep, that's the one. Okay.
Mhm.
So, requesting relief from the Dolliver line for 5 aspects, and I just want, so we're all understanding
Mhm.
what's what.
Mhm.
I think it is clear where your swimming pool is,
Mhm.
right? The steps and the landing, that's the portion to the left of the swimming pool.
Correct. Which-
Not really inclusive of your walkway because that's a separate thing.
Correct.
It's just
Correct.
the stairs with the,
stairs,
landing.
correct. Which it is, there is an existing stair. We're shifting it 8 feet westward.
Understood. Number 3, the outdoor shower. Where is that?
Outdoor shower is actually within that staircase going down to the.
Is that the
back.
doorway to it at the bottom of the
Yes,
stairs?
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I wonder why that's 2 variance requests since the shower's inside that structure.
I think we were just being very specific in
Okay.
spelling everything out as it was
Okay.
indicated on the application.
All right, so it's like 2 in 1, sort of. The 1-story addition, what is that
So
referencing
the one-story
exactly?
addition is basically, again, let me go to the previous page here. So you can see again in this drawing, this is the one-story addition, which
Okay.
is basically filling in the space underneath the existing structure.
So that orange exists,
Yes,
and
that
it's
orange
just
exists, and This
cantilevered.
is added, it's cantilevered. There is a
Okay.
column right underneath it.
Okay.
We're filling that in. And underneath the deck, this area is going to get enclosed and turned into a habitable GFA space.
Okay, and then the proposed stone terrace.
Stone terrace is what you see over here.
And a stone terrace is considered lot coverage.
As long as if it's not at grade, an elevated stone terrace would be
This is
considered
at grade,
a lot
actually.
coverage.
Yeah, I don't think it's coverage, but it still was called out for variance relief because
Okay.
it's a structure.
It's-
I think that's the reason it's
Okay.
called out,
Okay,
but it is at grade.
okay.
It is at grade, right? Steve?
Yes, it is at grade.
So do you agree that that's a correct determination, that needs a variance?
That's that way it was written by the building inspector, but I can confirm that interpretation.
Okay.
I know usually in the village, at-grade terraces are not considered part of the lot coverage, but I'm not sure on the ocean side if that's.
Right. Well, also
Lot
lot coverage is
building coverage.
it's also different from
Oh.
the Dolliver line setback,
Correct,
which is the variance
correct,
that
exactly.
you need.
That's why we
Okay.
included it just to be on the safe side.
Sure.
Okay, well, I think
Yeah.
that's really helpful, T-Mac, to me at least, in just knowing what's what. Especially the 1-story addition underneath something that's already there. You know, the proposed stairs versus the existing stairs.
Before we leave this, may I ask something before we leave this slide?
Please do.
Thank you. The stairs going down to the shower underneath the walkway.
Yes.
Right now that goes as orange, so it means it's existing.
So
But
that,
yet talk to me
Yes.
about that.
so this is an existing staircase and connection with some activities, pool equipment and so forth, presently in that space. We are shifting this 8 feet eastward. So in the new
Wait, 8
proposal.
feet west.
8 feet
West.
westward, excuse me. Thanks for correcting.
Tom, you are on it.
See?
tonight.
I can do geometry.
You
sorry.
are on it.
Yes, it's, we're demoing that existing connection and shifting it 8 feet westward.
Carol, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So the shower's under the walkway, so
Correct.
it's really kind of, what
Correct.
you said, one variance.
I mean, I would,
Yeah.
big
Technically, it's-
picture, 10,000 feet view, I'd view it that way.
Yeah.
All right. Please continue if you have more.
I would encourage board members to take a look at just the overall numbers in relationship to what the house can afford to be as far as its allowance to be added on to and what we're actually adding. It's still a relatively small house, especially in relationship to some of the houses neighbor next door and so forth, and also in relationship to what's existing. These are modest additions to a relatively speaking modest size house. We're still we have not increased any of our Dolliver setbacks. We're basically within the same setbacks that are existent to date. And if anything, we've shaved back and increased that distance between the Dolliver and the new structure. And mostly it comes down to squaring up of some rooms on the interior. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the pool?
About the pool, yes. The pool, the existing pool, let me see if I can get you a drawing that would be more helpful here. The existing pool, you can see in this drawing up here, was on the second floor, upper level deck. And we're removing, not only we're shaving the deck back, but we're removing this pool from the upper level to grade level, which you can see it over here. It's a smaller size pool compared to what's existing on the deck. But again, by shifting it down, it triggers a variance request. One of the advantages, of course, of moving it down, as you can see, at least 1/3 of this pool is tucked underneath the deck. And by shifting it down, we're also providing more privacy to neighbors on either side. When the pool was on the upper deck, we were very much exposed to both neighbors at that level. By shifting it down to a lower level, two goals were achieved. One was providing more privacy both for the homeowners and for the neighbors. And secondly, by shifting 1/3 of that pool underneath the deck, the owners wanted more shade sitting around the pool. And this way, again, 1/3 of that pool is shifted underneath a shaded area.
Now, today the pool is essentially above ground, is it? Because it's on it goes on the second level, but now you're going to be sinking it into the dunes, correct?
Yes, it's going to be at the level of the dunes, at grade, basically. At that point, actually, I should say, existent over there, the dunes are at least about 40, 50 feet away. Those areas are grassed areas. So we're at grade at the grass area over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe I'll add just to that, what happened to the screen?
Oh.
What do you think, bud?
Oh, I think the wire guy needs to come in. That's what I've been saying.
The wire guy?
Yeah. Everybody's there.
Oh, everybody's still on, so
Okay.
if they can hear me,
Yeah.
okay.
We can see everything.
Oh, okay. What I'll just point out
Okay.
is, if it's okay, or you.
You're good.
wanna
We're
wait?
good.
Okay.
Yes, keep going.
What I'll point out is because the top of the pool is at the second floor deck, it's kind of a design nightmare when you're trying to maximize GFA, because you're not just talking about the horizontal area that the pool takes up, but the volume that the tub takes up, because the tub goes down and then you basically don't have that space to work with. So the benefit to putting the pool at grade is that all the volume is underground and invisible, essentially, and that gave CMAC the ability to rework the space and turn it into usable space, which was formerly just the tub of the pool hidden behind some walls. So.
And what's the dimensions on the pool?
The dimensions on the pool, the total pool, it's about 40 feet by 17 feet. 40 by 17 feet, yes. I have it written down here, actually total. Let's see. Let's see if I can get that to you. Proposed pool, 290 is within the Dolliver line, and about 120 of it is underneath the deck.
Okay.
Okay. I will also walk you through a series of plans and elevations. The first plan is the existing, the second plan is the proposed. And again, I've highlighted the areas of new. So,
For me, CMAC, the 3D tells the
yes,
most.
that's the easiest way to
So
understand the
maybe we'll
building.
come back to these plans, but I imagine,
Sure.
Tony, you want to talk about the
Variance.
Dolliver line.
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted to go through the full, for disclosure, as far as what is being proposed. each one of these drawings have its own merits as far as how to understand this project. It's a complicated building in the sense that there's a lot of nooks and crannies to this building. We've added a little bit here and a little bit there. Overall, we've tried to keep all of these things within the existing footprint. What you see here right now, it's the existing ground level of the house. And all the area that you see in gray is the deck where the pool is on the upper level of it. This is the area on the ground level which we are proposing. So again, the red line that you see here is the outline of the old existing deck which we shaved back. This is the line of the new deck. This is the area underneath the deck that we've included as part of the GFA, plus these two rooms that are squared. This is the room that we filled in under the cantilever. This is the second level with which the original pool at the upper level, living room, and you can see again the Dolliver line crosses right in the middle of the building. And this is the proposed with the pool shifted downwards, the new deck shifted back from the existing deck, squaring off a room underneath that porch, and squaring off the living room at this point. This is the front of the house. There's no change on the front elevation. It stays the same. This is the side of the house facing east, existing at the top, proposed at the bottom. The only change that you'll see here is this area at the lower left corner that's filled in on the ground level.
And can I just clarify?
Sure.
You're comparing to the as-of-right approved, right?
Yes, but even though I'm comparing it to as of right, like for instance, as an example, there is an existing porch up front that we got an approval for removal of it.
Yeah, that's what I want to point out, that the
But-
ARB has actually approved the front side work that he's showing you.
And to make that work hasn't started yet? I believe it's
That
not yet
work, not,
permitted?
it's very minor portion, I'll say, but nothing major, no. No, actually, we haven't even pulled out the permit. They're just
Right.
basically in the process of moving furniture out right now. This is the rear of the building. This is at the top is what we got approval from the ARB with the pool still at the upper deck. This is the same view for proposed in front of you with the pool at the lower level. And you can see the walkway shifted 8 feet westwards. And lastly, this is the elevation facing west. It's the same footprint. That's the porch that you see over there. Basically, it's all within the same footprint of the existing. One thing that we've done is that there's a water feature that's existent on this level. We've increased that size to again provide more privacy between the neighbor and the homeowners. But again, that does not require variance.
When you say water feature, can you describe
It's
that?
basically a 5-foot wall that
Fountain.
has a fountain. Yeah. But that's, again, you can see at the top photo that we've got an approval up to the Oliver line, and we're just increasing that a bit more. But
Okay.
again, that's not subject, because it's outdoor and within the existing lot coverage, it's not subjected to any variance.
Understood.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How many square feet is the house? You said it was modest relative to its neighbors.
So within the 100-foot Oliver setback or total?
The total house?
Total, it's about 7,500, and we're going to 1,100,
And what's your max allowable?
18,000.
Okay.
I mean, we're maxed, there's a max of 18,000 in the village. We have actually more property to go based on the allowable, but it's maxed at 18,000.
Okay.
We have
Understood.
4.5 acres, more than 4.5 acres there.
And you're how many square feet? 11,000?
We're 11,000, yes.
11.
And change, yes.
Okay.
Small change. That's again all of the drawings.
So in this picture, the
Yes,
pool is half out and
yes.
half under the patio?
1/3 under the patio, 2/3 out. So what you see over there, the red portion that's on the pool, that area is actually going to be shaved off and removed from the existing deck. So we're pushing back the existing deck actually further away from the Doliver line.
Okay. All right, so
You're on.
let's talk about the variances, and every single one of these variances is from this Doliver line. And I know a lot of you have been through multiple applications involving the Doliver line, but it's an interesting situation because it was, when it was created, the dune crest, or it was at least deemed to be the equivalent of the dune crest, because back in the early 80s, at least the way the code is written, it was difficult to determine where the dune crest was. And outside of this area of the village, the 100-foot setback is measured from the crest of the first dune. If that were the case today, we're about 600 and something feet from that point. We would not need a variance times about 6. But in the early 80s, this Doliver line was created here when there was only one dune that was difficult to determine as dune crest. So in the wisdom of the trustees back then, they had this survey prepared. They had a line prepared in 1981 and 1982 for different sections, and then set that as the equivalent of the dune crest. What's happened in 40 years since then is a progressive growth of this dune system in this particular area of the village. We now have a triple rank dune system, so that, as you said, what was essentially the primary dune back in the early 80s is now the third dune in the triple dune system. And the entire width of the dune, probably from crest to crest, is about 550 feet or so.
It's because they extended the jetties for the canal,
That's likely the reason. I mean, there's no doubt, because
You
the
can
entire...
see how we're taking all the sand from West Hampton. You can go to the inlet and look.
It is that's got to be what happened, because that is the littoral flow of sand. It goes from east to west. Everybody knows that. And so it has built up in this area, and all the people here have benefited from that. The village has benefited from that. But what it has done is it's at least minimized the purpose of the Doliver line. And it exists. We're not pretending that it doesn't exist as a standard that is in the code, but its purpose is no longer what it was back then. I mean, it's pretty clear. So when we're talking about variances and impacts, the fact that we now have this triple dune system and the actual impact is no longer what it was when the law was created, that is really the defining feature of this. We did, when CMAC was working on the design of this project, we wanted to make sure this was a thoughtful project, and he kind of walked you through it, but there were essentially 3 guiding principles that we came up with at the beginning. And one was stick to the footprint as much as possible, right? The one place where we had to futz with that was the pool. But the second design principle was make sure that whatever coverage is within this Doliver line area is a net zero or benefit. So where the pool added a little bit of coverage, CMAC had to find an equivalent amount of structural coverage to offset that, which was why he was explaining why the deck got pulled back, so that net there's no increase in coverage. And the last principle was to make sure we did not get any closer to the Doliver line than the existing building. So from an impact standpoint, the existing building versus the proposed building, it's difficult to see how there's any adverse impact anyway on the character of the community from that. CMAC, can you also put up the aerial photograph again? Because the other part of impacts on the character of the neighborhood is what's around us. And when that first aerial was up, it's pretty clear that our house, compared to the 2 on either side, is actually a little bit further set back from the dunes. The one on the east, the big white one, was approved not that long ago. I can't say exactly how many years ago, but it was in the last 4 or 5 years, I believe. and it was approved at that setback. So the other, thing that CMAC mentioned was the pool, which is really what the one thing that's contributing to the increased coverage. But the impacts, as far as the neighbors are concerned, should be a net positive, given that a second floor pool deck it lacks privacy for everybody, not just for our clients, but for the neighbors. And the way it's being tucked away in the middle of sort of the two pieces of the house, it's going to be very difficult to see it from anywhere other than if you're in the house or on the house decks. So all of that goes towards the benefits and the character. We did find that last summer you guys approved another $1 variance, and it was for 1750 Meadow Lane.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little more complicated than ours. We looked at it because it also involved wetland relief, and it was a complete reconstruction. So you had one of those clean slate issues as opposed to us just trying to futz with the rear. But that was approved at somewhat similar distances, 53 feet for a pool, 51 feet for the pool deck. And your decision in that case had a sort of a discussion that's kind of apropos to ours, because you talked about how the dune system itself had multiple layers of protection which offset any impacts as far as the dollar line would go. So that's the argument about the impacts. As
But
far
we
as-
also got substantial environmental improvements on the side yards in the front of that house, so.
I understand, it was a more,
100%.
it was
There was
definitely more,
serious give and take.
it was definitely more complicated, and that's why we're not proposing a full knockdown and rebuild, which would trigger that kind of level of review. We're really just, as CMX pointed out, futzing around within the footprint that we have and trying to make the most out of it.
Yeah, it just has more dimensions than pure Dolliver
Sure.
line, how we looked at 1750. I think.
1750.
Yeah.
And I think that landscape will be part of our discussion.
Here too.
Yeah,
Oh.
for sure.
And
Well, I don't think they've come to talk about it, but
No.
we'll talk about it.
so that was sort of the
Thank
point,
you.
was just to, that there is that discussion about the Dolliver line and the multiple layers of dune protection that offsets.
That's a better conversation to have with the trustees than with us. We're not legislators.
No, I'm just pointing out your decision. Your
Yeah.
decision wrote that.
Yes.
Like you included that
Right.
reasoning that that was a partial offset to the Dolliver line request, that's all.
Well, yeah.
Tony, I imagine you've taken a real deep dive on Dolliver Line history. Was there anything that you could find about when the line was commissioned, that it would be revisited every 10 years, every 15, every 20 years or something?
That I don't know. What I can tell you is that it predated coastal erosion
Right.
hazard review, which in a large sense supplanted at a different level this focus on the dune system and dune protections. The coastal erosion hazard line, coincidentally, is right at the Dolliver line. I mean, they're almost coterminous. I know they might be offset by a few feet here and there, but in the 80s, the coastal erosion hazard line was created only a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
They put the coastal erosion hazard line right at the Dolliver line.
So it was ahead of its time at the time.
Yeah, that's fair to say. But it really, if I were the trustees, I would consider revisiting it. But they have other things they have to deal with, and
Mm-hmm.
this just may not be a high priority. And I understand that it doesn't affect enough people often enough to be front and center to what they do. But if I were
Right.
urging them to consider it, I think that is something that's it's a vestige. It really is, and it's no longer needed. But I admit it exists. It exists, and so we have to deal with it.
Alex, do you agree with Anthony's assertion that if the Dolliver line did not exist, we would be beginning our oceanfront setback lines at the dune crest of the first dune?
I believe that's how the code is written. And
And
also
not
the,
at the coastal erosion hazard line.
right, and the coastal erosion hazard line, as you remember, doesn't have a setback buffer to it. It's,
right.
you have to be landward of it, which this is.
So even if it were the coastal erosion hazard line, this application would comply with that.
Otherwise, they'd be seeking variances from the coastal erosion hazard line as
Right.
well.
Yeah, it's fully compliant to coastal erosion.
Right.
But just to answer your question, the way 1168D1 reads, the basic rule, which applies to everybody else, is that on the Ocean Beach water frontage, all buildings and structures shall be set back 100 feet shoreward from the crest of the first rank of Ocean Beach dunes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes on to say, because it's difficult to determine for this particular area, it's going to be set at the line as depicted on those maps
Mm-hmm.
that was created by Dollar and Associates in 81 and 82.
Am I remembering correctly that in your previous application, which I think it was just you and I, Joyce, who were on the board then, you did prepare a fairly robust landscape and wetlands improvement plan? Is any part of that part of your offering here today?
It's where things went sideways last time.
Okay.
And I'm just being candid about that.
That's fine.
Because what the experience that we had with the environmental consultant at the time was we thought we were proposing all beneficial things in the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
Proposing a new sanitary system,
Mhm.
we were proposing buffers,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter what we proposed, it wasn't enough. It was
Mhm.
like, we need more, and the client got to the point where they weren't willing to give up most of their front yard. I mean, pretty much all of the front yard other than the tennis court. And
When you say front yard, you're referring to the Meadow Lane side
Yes.
of the house. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's where things got a little bit off kilter.
Okay.
And the clients asked, let's just do a plan that doesn't require a new sanitary system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This doesn't, because we're not adding any bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a domino effect. If you
Mhm.
wanted a new bedroom, you needed a new sanitary system. You need a new sanitary system, you have to change the driveway. You change the driveway, and then you're changing everything. It triggers this whole series of...
We live it, Tony.
Yeah, I know you do. But we didn't want to relive it, just to
Okay.
be fair. I mean, that was, it was not a pleasant, it wasn't a pleasant experience, and the clients didn't want to relive that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. Well, what if we were to say that we may be able to look favorably on the application if you were to plant native plantings on some portion of what is currently lawn, mowed and fertilized lawn?
Just like a gratuitous offer. I mean, in other words,
Well,
it's not tied
we are empowered to horse trade, as it were.
Let me ask this then, because it may make a difference, and I don't know the answer to this, and maybe Alex knows the answer. If you're just doing plantings, does that trigger the need to get a wetland permit on top of all this?
No, I
You
don't think so, because, I mean, you have a lawn, you can plant whatever you like. You can simply stop mowing and fertilizing the lawn, and it won't take long for beach grass to take root there. I think it would be a good deal. That's win-win for everybody if we were able to consider that. I think, I can only speak for myself, I view your application favorably right now, but I do think that we need to seek to limit fertilized and mowed lawns in these areas where we can. And if we can incorporate that and make a win-win arrangement for all of us, I would love to be able to hammer that out with you guys.
I think we can talk it over with
Okay.
the client and get back to you.
I mean, how do you guys feel? I don't want to
Agree.
speak for you.
You said it perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah?
I mean, I think as long as...
Wait, Carol?
And maybe we can confirm that with Alex and Chris, that it would not open up the Pandora's
Horrible.
box that we do not want to reopen.
Sure.
No,
Well-
I don't think it would trigger a wetland variance.
Well, a
the-
wetland special permit. What
The
do you think,
wetland
Alex?
special permit
Yeah.
it would be for landscaping with the dimension of wetlands. I don't think there's wetlands in this area of the property, and I don't think landscaping in an area of the Dolliver line triggers
No, I
a
think-
request.
You're
But-
talking though, Luke, about landscaping on the other side. I
On
think.
the
On the-
oceanfront side?
No, you're
Or
talking
the-
about it, I
Meadow
think,
Lane
on the Meadow
Yes.
Lane side. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
That's what I thought.
I
That's what I
am
thought.
open to a conversation about either and,
Okay.
and what my fellow board members think would be best for the village.
Yes.
Yeah?
Well,
Carol,
yes.
what do you think? You're muted.
Sorry, I'm trying to be polite. I would agree, yeah. But I don't want to make their lives back in the difficult stage. I am empathetic to that, but I would agree.
Sure. I am also empathetic to the time that you've spent in front of this board. But I do think this is a much better application, and I appreciate that. And so I think we view the application as it stands now generally favorably. But like I said, I think that we should take this opportunity to improve the environmental conditions via less lawn, fertilized lawn.
Okay, that's a fair question, and why don't we hold it over, at least to give us a chance to talk that over and
Sure.
see what we can come up with.
Okay, I think that sounds great.
And I don't think, it doesn't sound like you're giving us a specific parameter, but you're asking us to come up with something.
Well,
Is that
something
fair?
material.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna pose putting, one swig of
This
of
is a couple of
switchgrass over
yeah.
here. Don't,
I didn't
I
think,
get it,
just,
I get it.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, no, Tom is right. Something meaningful. I wouldn't suggest 100% removal of lawn in favor of native plantings, but something that you feel is appropriate and helps smooth the process
Okay.
for you. Okay.
That's fair.
All right, is there anyone in the Zoom that wants to, or in the audience that wants to speak on this application?
And I think we also have Lisa if the board has any questions.
Oh yeah, of course, Lisa.
Hi.
Hi.
No, you guys have kind of answered everything I thought you were going to ask me. You already know the answers to. So, yeah, I think that I think it was really actually very helpful to have them walk through the history of the application because I did not know the previous history of the application. If board members want to look closely at a particular sheet in the set, I find sheet A1.1, which is the proposed main ground level floor plan with the red lines of the existing approved over it, very helpful for understanding where the new structure is as opposed to the old one and where the relief sought related to the Dolliver line. I did have the question about the septic because it looked to me like bedrooms were being added in the new portion, but it sounds like the applicant's confirming that they aren't because I was going to highlight that they seem to be well aware that if a new septic system is needed, it will inevitably need a special wetland special permit. And as Alex said, any ground disturbance within the wetlands 125 feet of the wetland setback does require a wetland special permit. So that would require that additional permit from the board. But once it's outside of that 125-foot setback, it would not, landscaping alone wouldn't be subject to it. So those would be the areas where if the applicant was looking for things they could add to the property as requested by the chairman that would not trigger the wetland setback, that would be the guideline I would use.
Okay.
Sounds fair.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
just to add, we have not added any bedrooms. We've shifted bedrooms around. We've enlarged a couple of the bedrooms. But as far as the number of fixtures, they're the same number of fixtures, same number of kitchens, same number of wet use. We're very cognizant of that in relationship to the.
I can say, slightly off topic, I was in this house a few years ago and think your proposal is a huge improvement for the home.
It's a funky house. That's a nice way to put it.
It's unique.
actually. Funky.
Yeah.
Before we move
okay.
on, can I ask a question?
Please
Could
do.
you remind the board, there's a little bit of history here with the tennis court setback and a condition of approval and how that was addressed?
So when we first came to you, there was a setback established by the ZBA for the tennis court, and the at that point, the existing tennis court was not adhering on the corner of the tennis court. So we went through a period of about 6 months of shaving back, bringing that into compliance. That was one item. The other one was that
Gates.
there was a gate. The gate was built in 2010, the same year that the gate law went into effect, but the village took the position that the gate was not permitted. We went back and we got a permit for the gate, even though we wanted to demolish that gate in the new proposal, but we did get that approved, and then we went back to the ARB for a new gate, and we got that approved too.
Okay.
And the tennis court is now in compliance with that setback?
Yes. I mean, that was the condition of us going back to the original application, that we wouldn't be heard if we don't bring back the building into compliance. And yes, it was brought back.
And Alex, I'm assuming since they're here, there's everything from the past has been cleared up. Gate,
I do see that
tennis
there's a
court.
permit for the
Yeah.
gate, and I'll confirm with the building inspector
Yeah,
about
right.
the other things
Okay.
that were
I
outstanding.
remember you spent
No, we went
quite
to-
some time.
to
working on
two
that.
sessions of ARB for demolition and approval.
When would you like to come back?
We can come back, when is the next meeting, Alex?
May 13th.
May 13th.
Soon?
May
It will be a little soon.
13th. I'm not here on May 13th, the following meeting will probably.
What's the second May?
Why don't you do May
22.
22? That is the Thursday preceding Memorial Day weekend.
CMAC, I'm going to suggest we actually do the June meeting, the June 10th, I think, is the...
June 10th.
June 10th, okay.
Because
fine.
this is a serious question, and to try to get you an answer in a few days is a little difficult, so why don't we say June 10th? And-
Yep. Okay.
All right?
Okay.
There we go.
I mean, do at least we agree that this is a reasonable ask from the board?
I'm not against it. I mean, I think it may come down to the details, but we do have to clear it with the
Okay.
clients. But I understand exactly what you're
Okay.
asking for. Let's call it mitigation. You know,
Sure.
that it's related to, we'll try to come up with something that's related to the work we're doing as mitigation to help the changes that we're proposing.
And please reach out to Lisa as a resource if you would like her to help you narrow down your areas of focus.
Okay,
Okay?
yeah, sure.
So, all right, so if that's the case, then I'll move to adjourn for all purposes to the June 26th hearing.
June 10th.
10th,
10th.
sorry.
Yes, sir.
June 10th. All right, do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for your
guys.
time today.
Thank you.
Case 3201, 75 Hetty Creek Lane.
75?
75 Hetty Creek, yes.
Hi, I'm Debbie Croft, I'm the architect.
Hi,
for
Debbie.
The homeowner. Hi. We're here for two different variances. And I think it's pretty straightforward, actually, because, but I may be wrong, but we already had two of the same variances granted in 2021. One was the wetlands special permit for a septic system, and because that septic system was not installed, we are reapplying to have that variance granted again, or the permit, I guess that's what it is, this wetlands special permit.
Don't I have to say?
Oh, do I have to do something?
Oh, yeah, Linda.
I just would like you to know that my sister-in-law, Christine Munn, is a trustee for Miles Robert. I have
Okay.
no financial interest in this property, and I don't live with my sister-in-law,
Okay,
but you should know.
all right, thank you.
Would it be more appropriate for Linda to recuse herself?
No, I reviewed the ethics code just to make sure, but you have no obligation to recuse.
Okay.
You're good.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Debbie.
So the 75 Hetty Creek is a flag lot, and in 2021, there were two variances granted. Well, I call it a variance, but I guess it's the wetland special permit was granted for the septic system. It wasn't built within 90 days, so that permit expired. So we're reapplying for that permit. We're asking for the same relief, 178.5 feet, where 200 feet is required for the septic. So it had been, I have that, and you should have that in your file, the previous variance that was granted. for the septic system. And the second variance is for an area variance, and that was also granted in 2021, except the variance at that time was requesting relief for 12.5 feet from into the front yard, into the 60-foot setback, and we are asking for 7.5 feet. So we're asking for a reduction from 60 feet to 52.5 feet. And that's, I guess because the variances had been granted in the past, that's pretty much, it's pretty straightforward as far as we're not increasing anything. It's because of the wetlands, the only place to add on is the front or to go up. So we are going up over part of the structure and have to come out to the front.
Alex,
Yes.
they already have a variance on the property for something in the front yard that was more substantial. They still need to come back for this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think this is, variances are typically specific to the plans that were approved with them, and because this is a different application, I think that's why it's back here, because it's a slightly different proposal.
Debbie, the sanitary system is the exact same proposal as previous? Same location, same size?
Yes,
Same methods?
same thing.
Debbie, is that the site plan there? If you put that on the table, we can pick it up on the screen to show the board where the addition and where the proposed, yep, you could put it right where you have that plan. And maybe you could point out to the board where the septic is going and where the addition is going.
So the existing septic system is here, which is a conventional system. And the new tank is here, and then the leaching galleys are over here. And that's what had been in the previous application that was given approval. And then the addition, the previous addition was just over the garage and came out 12.5 feet from the house. And so we're coming out a little bit wider, but we're only coming out 7.5 feet from the house. So it's a less, we're asking for less relief.
Am I reading the survey correctly to say that despite the fact that the new sanitary system does require a wetlands
Permit?
special permit, there is a house in between the
Oh, yes.
wetlands and the sanitary system?
There is a house in between, an existing house, yes.
Yeah, if I can chime in here on the wetland special permit issue, if that's okay.
Please do.
Yeah, this septic, this is the application includes putting in an IA, and one of these more improved on-site wastewater treatment systems. And it is, as far as I can see, about as far as you could get from the wetlands on this property. So it really is, that alone, that is a net benefit to the property, and I see no reason why it would not be approved. The only thing I would say to the applicant is that we do need the full environmental assessment form, and please use the online mapper to fill it out, because some of the answers on the short form were not correct. Like it said it wasn't in a floodplain, but it is. And so I just want to make sure all that is answered correctly so we have the right backup in the file. But yeah, as far as from a wetlands perspective, installing this IA system, as far as you can get it from the wetlands is a benefit.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there...
And then the board will remember when it comes to area variances that the code grants the board extra consideration to allow for variances to maximize those setbacks to wetlands, buffer structures, and things like that.
What does the backyard of this home look like? So I may have the same thought that we had on the application previous. It looks fairly well vegetated. Here's the creek, the end of the creek there. that comes up. There's a lot
Grass
of,
and lots of
yeah, I mean, this is like
overgrowth.
wild grass plantings.
And because this is a flag lot, that easterly lot line is the front yard setback line from where it's measured from rather than the street.
Right, right. Tom, what are your thoughts?
I think where it's a net benefit,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's sufficient enough.
Mm-hmm.
The backyard, I've paddled there, it's wetlands basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's
You
a
can
very
get up
ti-
the creek at high tide?
high tide you can get there, yes.
Okay.
Not low tide.
No.
Yeah, it's very nice wetlands there.
Okay. Joyce, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree that it's a net benefit. The one thing I wanted to raise is supposedly the neighbor, Mr. Zagarias, said that if this front yard setback variance is approved, that it reduces the privacy of the neighbor of his swimming pool. So he's asking it was done conditionally with the installation of some trees to provide more screening.
Mm.
Oh, I
Do we have a
see.
letter from him in the?
Yeah, we
Yes.
do.
Yeah, Tom
do.
Zachariah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, his pool is right here.
Yeah, we do
You
indeed.
know, this,
Yes, I have some photos of the front yard, and the owner and he have agreed to that.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's his.
So if you,
Oh, God.
Carol, is there any relation?
No,
I pronounce it differently.
They pronounce
Where's
it.
it?
Zacharias.
Okay.
I said Zacharias.
And Carol, what are your thoughts on the application?
I think they've worked hard on this. I think it works. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Alex or Eileen, given the neighbors' concerns, and it sounds like they have a handshake deal, should we condition an approval on the plantings, on the execution of that deal?
Sure, you can do that.
Okay,
We're gonna do it before we even put in the septic.
okay,
I met with them.
okay.
And there's an area where.
Sorry, we can't capture your comments unless you're at a microphone.
there's a mic right there.
Sorry about that.
oh,
Thank
this
you.
is the,
I just heard about this thing on Monday, so we were
Okay.
racing. And,
Please introduce
I want
yourself.
to be a good neighbor, and I met with him. I said, come over here, let's talk about it. And he brought his wife over, and he was saying, he knows about trees. I don't know a tree from a hole in the wall.
So let me stop you real quick. You're the neighbor or
I'm the owner.
You're your applicant, okay.
Well, yeah,
And your name is?
Miles Robert.
Hi, Miles. Okay, please go on.
And so anyway, I told him that, yeah, he wants 3. I said, 2, whatever will fit in there. It's a 20-foot space.
Okay,
And we're trying to do the math, how wide he wants a cryptum area, he said. The cryptum areas can be 15 feet wide, so they require pruning all the time. So I don't know if we'll get 2 big ones or 3 little ones, but,
okay,
and we would do that before we put the septic in, so that they know where to dig, because it's gonna be right near. The only condition I told him, and he said he understood, is that if, God forbid, we had to use the expansion area.
right.
I told him the trees are gonna have to come down,
Mhm.
because, and he said, if that was
Okay.
the only solution, he understands, and I have that from him. We talked about that today.
Okay, well, you only need the future expansion if you expand the home. I've never seen it happen. Okay, so how should we write that in?
What I could suggest
Please.
is that if the applicant is able to submit that, some kind of planting plan to the board between now and then, we could possibly incorporate it into the language of a written decision so that it references a specific plan. Otherwise, it's hard for the building inspector to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to comment that the previous variance, the neighbor had only requested 1 tree, despite the fact that it was greater encroachment, but anyway, and it was just written into the decision that somewhere it's discussed. I don't know exactly where, but
I don't
anyway.
think they need anything fancy, just a basic plan.
Yeah, I think just the number of trees and where they're going, so that, it's something that,
Leland cypress would work also.
Yeah, I want to make them happy. It has to
Sure.
be 5 feet from the leaching pool, so
Right.
Yep.
placement of it's very important.
Okay, so I think it would be sufficient for for you to mark up a site plan or a survey.
The neighbor did a nice job on his sketch right there. We could do
Okay,
that,
so
but-
let's
yeah.
let's submit that to Alex. He'll determine if that's sufficient enough to become part of the record. So, I mean, I feel like we're viewing this application favorably. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then I will move to close the case, pending written
Except-
decision.
Except for a
and-
written submission?
And, yeah.
We'll
under the
leave it
condition-
open for the planning plan only.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yes, we'll,
Well, will you look at what, because you should have that in your file, his letter, because he sent this is a copy that was emailed to your office.
Yeah,
So
we
will you
have
look
it
at-
in the file, if
And if
that's
you-
what you're proposing as well, and
Well,
we
I
just,
mean-
we'll make sure there's enough information to
That's-
reference it in the
Would you be-
decision.
We're just gonna leave the
I-
record, the written record open for you to submit that plan, and that's it, whatever you wanna do.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, so we'll.
Hold on, if we could just also leave it open to submit the full environmental.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
thank you for
Right.
that,
Thanks,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Oh, yes, I was just given the short form to fill out. That's what I was told was needed, so. Yep, we'll do that.
so look, then since there's a few things that need to go to a few different people, I'll then propose that we're gonna hold this open for all purposes until the next hearing. And that will give everyone time to get their documents in. Alex can review, and we can probably end this on May 13th.
Yeah, we can ask council to have a decision, and Lisa for a wetlands permit
Okay.
to be ready at that meeting if the board feels they're ready to close it and
Okay.
adopt it then.
We feel good about that?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
That's enough
absolutely.
time to come to an agreement with your neighbor easily, I assume.
I'm sorry?
That's enough time to come to an agreement with your neighbor, I assume.
We already have an agreement.
Yeah, they have
Yeah,
an agreement,
they
it's
have an
just about
agreement.
getting it
It's
into
just
the-
getting
He says
it-
3 trees, I think 2 may be fine, but.
Oh,
I
that
wanna
doesn't
get
sound
my-
like
I
an
wanna get my
agreement.
wife- like a gardener over here.
They're close to an
Yeah, I
agreement.
want it to be, look nice for me too.
Okay,
So-
of course. So you guys work it out, get it on paper, submit it to the building department, and we'll do what we can on May 13th. Yeah? Do I have a
So I'll have
second?
Brian draft
Yep,
a decision,
second.
right?
Please do. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we come back on the 13th.
Come back on the 13th.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Well, I mean, Alex, do they need to come back? If they get everything to you, we can review it ourselves, or?
It's up to you if you'd like to present that to the board at this time, or if you'd just like them to review it. I mean, the hearing is open, so you can continue if you have more to say.
Okay,
Come on down, and it will likely be your final visit.
okay.
And I have emails, but what did you,
No, they just want a planting plan, so we'll do.
planting plan, got it.
And if there's any questions, Alex is available to help you. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, before we go on to area variances, just want to note that we still have Lisa on. I
Mhm.
don't know if you wanted her to any follow-up on the Shippies application, because I think we're moving on from wetlands now. Just a heads up.
Shippey's one is in here.
Yep, I don't know if you wanted to hear that while we had Lisa Rickmers with us.
I do.
Yes.
Let's
Good
move
idea.
let's move to case 3191, 36 Windmill.
But Alex, we're not the lead committee on this, are we?
Correct, so the planning board is the lead agency for the secret review, which they are doing. So this board has agreed to let them take the lead on that. However, this board still has jurisdiction on the special exception requests, the waiver, the variance request, as well as the parking waiver.
Hi, Wayne. Whenever
Good
you're ready.
evening. Okay. Good evening, board members. Wayne Bruin, O'Shea, Marcinsigan Bruin, on behalf of the applicant. With us is Lisa Zaloga, the architect of record, as well as Mr. and Mrs. Betts, principal of 36 Windmill Lane LLC. At the last meeting, as you know, this matter's been, was submitted back in November, and I believe our first full hearing was at the last meeting in March. Based on the comments we received from the board, we went back, among other things, we looked back into the code, and we found a section that deals with restaurants. And that particular section also had several sections that deal with outdoor dining that were not necessarily in the outdoor dining sections. In particular, the one question we had was with the special exception with outdoor dining was a expiration and a requirement for renewal every January 1st. And part of the reason we had thought to ask was not understanding how that would, what kind of process. Well, actually we found that section in the code that speaks to that process. And so, among other things, we were withdrawing our request for that relief, and we'll just abide by the code provisions as they're stated in the code.
Okay.
Number one. Number two is with respect to the standard, special exception standard that requires that there be a maximum or no greater than 75% of the outdoor seats in relationship to indoor seats. We reduced 4 seats, outdoor seats, and got that below the 75% requirement, so no longer needing a variance on that provision. And we also found in that same exact section, a section that says, in the event we're within 500 feet of a village parking lot, that we're not required to provide the off-street parking for any outdoor dining, which is interesting, which changed, as you know, we're well within 500 feet of village parking. So that changed the amount of parking waiver that we needed. So instead of 16 spaces, we now only need a waiver of 4 spaces. And of course, we're willing to pay the fee for that. One other element, we also had discussions with the planning board at their last meeting and acknowledging this board's relinquishment of lead agency status. In the discussions with the planning board, they raised a concern, an off-site concern with drainage related to the parking, the restoration of the area that we're putting the septic system in. And they wanted to basically understand how stormwater runoff or drainage is going to be handled. In that discussion, we also put together a plan to lead to a discussion for the Department of Public Works and the mayor. They all reviewed that plan, and out of that also came realization on the village part about the amount of parking that's being there, and the village actually had put together a plan for when that area gets restored to provide for 10 additional parking spots in the village parking. And what was also resolved was who was going to install those parking spots, and our client has agreed to install those 10 parking spots when he restores that area. So that is just something else that we're going to add to the mix here when the board...
Do you have a plan that shows how that parking works?
It's right here.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No worries. This was created by the mayor's consultant, and it's kind of in that grassy area that currently exists behind Shippey's. There's 9 spots there, and they're kind of building a 10th spot right here.
I got it. Thank you.
So what we've done is, and working in conjunction with the mayor's office, is our engineers put together a plan to start to deal with the actual restoration of that and to deal with the drainage requirements, which we believe can all be resolved. We had a lengthy Zoom discussion today with the consultants, and we believe we have a path forward, and to make sure that the drainage, among other things, and all the specifications for that parking area are going to be reviewed carefully by the village in conjunction when we're restoring that. So we're going to do all the work, but it's all going to be designed and managed by the village. That being said, and Lisa can walk through any plans if the board would like, but I know this board had asked and for us to go through the standards. I can do that with you tonight. The hope that we have after tonight is that to assure that this project can be timely constructed, in particular the rear septic system needs to get in, and the mayor would like to see all that work done before the summer season. And so we're on a tight time schedule, and we believe that if this board is in agreement, we could ask that the public hearing be closed tonight, and that you can render a decision at your next available meeting. That being said, it's our understanding the planning board will be reviewing the documents and considering a negative declaration at their next meeting, which if they do adopt that, that would be in position for this board to rely on as well. As this board knows, there's been a lot of history on this property, actually back in 1986. So what we're dealing with is what was a vacant lot, so to speak, which was annexed to the Shippey's property back in 1984. And that has stayed vacant and but part of the restaurant property. And we're looking at infill and a redevelopment of the restaurant. And I gave you a lot of information about the comprehensive plan recommendations and how actually this whole stretch of Windmill Lane is actually recommended that be developed and have some flexibility with respect to a number of restrictions, particular off-street parking, and consider waivers. That being said, I don't want to go necessarily through those. We gave you a document that had all the master plan recommendations, but we believe this restriction is consistent with that. The first thing, and as this board knows, there was an application before this board for what we called the first and second phases, which resulted in the existing addition that's under construction now, that part of the building that is under construction in 2024. And this board made a number of findings. Number one, with respect to it being a restaurant and special exception approval and any modification of that special exception, that this restaurant has existed for decades, probably most likely about 70 years. And that was a finding in your 2024 decision. And you found that that particular building expansion for the restaurant did comply with all the special exception standards. We know we're back before you. We are adding basically seating capacity to the restaurant. And so this board, and as well as the applicant, are looking at a number of potential impacts. Physically, but for the major addition and the major positive impact on the village is the construction of the new up-to-date septic system. But for this application, that will not be done, and we'll continue with the substandard. So I think it's a very significant element, and it's one that you'll find is hard to come by in the village. And the hope is ultimately sewers will be the actual solution to all these issues. But a number of places, a number of restaurants, with respect to complying to the code and all the standards and other wet uses, so to speak, are basically constrained by what the health department will allow us to do. In this particular case, since we started with the application, we realized to get that health department approval, we would have to give up existing flow that was generated by the existing apartments. And because of that, we're able to stay within the pre-existing flow with all the seating that's proposed. So everything you see proposed complies to the health department standards. In fact, we received emails today from the health department that once we submitted a copy of the recorded easement where they were looking for from the village board, that they're ready to process the application for the border review, health department's border review administratively. And that's to hopefully be accomplished in the next week or two. Of course, they will not give final approval unless and until the village adopts its seeker determination. That's the actual department's approval for construction. We're also looking at the special exception standards for dining, outdoor dining, and a number of them are addressed specifically by this application, and we have in all our documents shown that. The standards, the first one are all the elements shown on a site plan. They have been. And all parking is shown, including any credited by a variance. That's all noted and acknowledged on the plans. The outdoor dining area will not be heated, or it will be open air dining, and we had that interpretation with the building inspector, and that was something the consultant and Alex looked at early on, and we reviewed it with the building inspector, and it caused some modifications to walls and things of that sort. And then, without getting into the next one, there is a limitation of 50 seats, which I'll talk about as a variance. The next section was all tables and chairs shall be movable, no permanent seating, which is the case. They're all movable, no permanent seating. The next section also has to do with an outdoor service bar. We'll talk about that in a second. But most importantly, no outdoor music or sound amplified from the interior of the building shall be allowed. And to me, that is one of the significant factors of the village's regulation of outdoor dining, is to make sure the music that might be generated from that kind of, those sources would not occur in the outdoor areas, which is what would normally impact. That's where the complaints have been throughout the village on restaurants and perhaps the bars, is that the loud music, particularly outside, is causing impacts. The next standard is outdoor dining shall be permitted only to the extent that such activity does not interfere with or diminish the use and enjoyment or adjacent properties or those in the surrounding area. And that goes to the impact on the character of the area. And we start with the village's comprehensive plan and identifying this part of Windmill Lane as certainly underutilized. I drive by there every day, and I just, I think we all look at the building 2 doors down that's still boarded and deteriorating, and that certainly doesn't help anybody in that particular stretch of the road, but it's been a long time since any development, and certainly the comprehensive plan in the village is trying to promote, redevelopment and activity that will rejuvenate that corner or block of Windmill Lane. The next standard I mentioned before, which is that all special exception authorizations shall expire on January 1st. If you look at that section of the village code, it requires a formal application to this board, come every January. That application does not require further public hearing. However, it does require reports from the building inspector and the police department to assure that there's been compliance with all the conditions of this board and the statute along the way, in which case the board can grant the renewals. Interestingly, this is something we found was the legislation probably mirrors some of the conditions of this board on many of the restaurants that have outdoor dining, and it requires an annual renewal. And I'm not 100% sure that all of that is happening. This board is entertaining applications every January for renewals of all those permits, but certainly that is what we found in the conditions of the approvals of many of those. And so that takes care of that renewal section, and like I said, we're not asking for any modification to that. We'll abide by that process, and we believe we can comply with that. With respect to the parking waiver, we are asking now for a waiver of 4 spaces that would require a payment in lieu of $32,000. And that follows the comprehensive plan recommendations for this board's to have flexibility, in particular in parking requirements in the village center. But I would also advise the board, in addition to the $32,000, we are constructing 10 new spaces. And that's a benefit, and that's actually in consideration of the easement that the village granted. But we are doing that, and so there's actually going to be 10 new spaces, a net. So if you were to look at your waiving 4, there's a net at least of 6 positive additional spaces. The other variance, what we're asking for is from the special conditions for outdoor dining that have to do with the number of seats. And that section requires that there only be 50. We're asking for actually 74. And there are actually 4 additional, I believe, based on what maybe Alex he put in the notice. But there's some 4 seats on the second floor balcony that they're seasonal and they're coming in and out of that area on the second floor. So nonetheless, the board asked us how, where, and how this came about. And we'll go back to the second phase. We built the building. We're under construction. And what you're left with is this area, that part of the property, roughly 25 feet wide, and stretching from the building to the street. That's there. So what we have done, just like any business would do, is try to utilize that to the maximum extent practical. And the other factor here was the health department. And so when we put the 2 factors together, we ended up with the number of seats, and that's how that came about. We would submit that it's not practical to fill in less of that space in any other manner. The other thing is the building, we're putting up a new facade. It's been reviewed by the ARB generally. We didn't see major objections, and we expect them to like the building when they get to a formal decision-making point. We need the building to face that part of the street, and we're prohibited from creating an alleyway less than 15 feet wide. So, an argument as an alternative, we looked at, well, you can't just put a wall and it would have to be 15 feet in, and you can imagine how that changes the whole configuration and usage of the site when you're talking about an area that's only 25 feet wide. So you're leaving yourself with 10 feet, which is not practical to have any seating or otherwise. And that is something under the village business zone where it says your setback has to be 0 or 15. So we had to be mindful of a number of balancing here, and that's how we got to this point. But as I mentioned, most importantly, it was the health department that has been generating and pushing the design here. As I said, originally we were trying to keep the 2 apartments above. And then, if we tried to do that, it would have basically made it impractical for us to provide any seating because it wouldn't be, we'd end up with not the appropriate flow. So there are some of the reasons why we are asking for the seating and that it exceeds the number of 50 as under the code. The other special conditions.
To interrupt you. Why exactly are you?
Well, I'm telling you why that's
okay.
how it came about, but I can go through parts of the test. We believe that meets all of the 5-part tests because it's not going to have an impact on the character of the neighborhood and things of that sort. The other variance that we're seeking has to do with the section of the code that speaks to a service bar. And interestingly, it's a little confusing to me. because it says no outdoor service bar shall be permitted. And I said to myself, what is a service bar? And if you look at any definition of a service bar, that's a bar that is there for the employees of a restaurant to get the drinks from the bartender and to take them for service. In fact, most of them say you can't have any patrons sitting at a service bar getting served. And that's the actual definition of a service bar. But here, it's interesting that it's saying no outdoor service bar shall be permitted. And I think what we're proposing is not a service bar. We're proposing an area where 6 people can sit down and eat and drink. So it's a little confusing on our part. Nonetheless, we've asked for the variance, and I think the underlying issue for a service bar is not to have a situation like we'll all remember the old driver's seat in the outdoor bar there and the music blaring and that kind of thing happening and activities. I would submit in this particular case, if you look at where we're proposing this bar, it's in the center of the project. Lisa, I don't know if you have that. You can point. It's in the center. It's not on the outskirts, and if we're stuck in the middle of two buildings in those areas. It's not going to impact any of the neighbors. It's 19 feet in length, and like I said, it's a question whether it's actually a service bar or not. But nonetheless, we don't want to argue that. We would want this board to recognize this so that if you have other applicants that come in, you can treat them consistently. One of the things we'll note is we went around the village, looked at a number of the other existing restaurants. We did pull some of their applications, and lo and behold, at least probably 6 or 7 of them all have outdoor service bars. So and I'm not saying they're legal or not legal. We haven't gone that far, but it's something that, again, when we look at impact on the character of the community and how this project is consistent with what's happening in the community, we would just point out that that's something that's typical of restaurants, that they have actually a service bar. Most of them are actual service bars, not bars where people sit outside.
Okay.
I mean, you could start with La Parmigiana, you can go to the old Herb McCarthy's, is it? Union Bar.
Herb
I go
McCarthy's.
back a few years.
Dating yourself, Wayne.
Yeah. But a number of them all have these service bars that are outside. And again, it's just the character that we're consistent with. With respect to the variance standards, I again go back and start with the comprehensive plan. That's the planner and me. And I gave you all that information when we start talking about the character of the area. And you know this area better than I do, but we have rotations on our south, the abandoned boarded up building immediately south of that, and then we have some small stores and eventually the Verano restaurant on the corner. West of us, we have the firehouse, we have a day spa and the former telephone company building, and north of us is the bank and the Rite Aid and the associated parking lots, and then east, it's all the village parking lots. We have the rear of the parish, and we have other parking lots. So we're almost isolated there, and we don't have any of the neighbors, since this has been submitted, no one's, and even through the prior hearings, no objections been raised or concerns. I think everybody, in fact, John, Mr. Betts, has told me that one of the things he's been doing is surveying his customers as to what kind of services and what is needed and what kind of activities would be appropriate and necessary for his restaurant. And a lot of that has generated this application in this direction. But none of them are complaining that this is not the place for this type of activity, and that the restaurant shouldn't occur, or the expansion of the restaurant, and that outdoor dining is appropriate for this particular location. I mentioned the comprehensive plan. We are consistent with all the comprehensive plan recommendations here, particularly for the redevelopment of restaurant use with night activity on Windmill Lane. As far as impact on the character of the neighborhood or detriment, the physical improvements are already under construction primarily. Of course, the facade would be a part of that construction, which then basically blocks off the outdoor activity, the restaurant activities, which is a little different than a lot of restaurants. We have a lot of out on the sidewalk dining occurring, which is what you'll see at Verano, all the dining outside. We'll have it behind a wall, so that is a little different. The facade, as I mentioned, appears to be acceptable to the ARB. We are having a positive impact on parking because of the 10 new parking spaces that we're going to construct, as well as pay the $32,000 fee. And of course, the proposed upgrade in the septic system will have a significant positive impact on the groundwater and the community. So with respect to, we don't believe there's any undesirable changes which will, or any detriment to the nearby properties. With respect to alternatives, just like most of the properties in the village business zone, in the village center, the diminutive size of this property prevents anything done without the benefit of a variance. So no matter what we do, at some point, we're going to be before this board looking for some kind of variances. And you'll recall that was essentially a finding that occurred when we asked for the improvements, the expansion to the kitchen. And just as an aside, I pointed out to our client that the prior owner had received approvals to fill in that space with a one-story building, which was going to be used for retail stores, and it never went through. And there was probably a reason, because it just, again, was not an area that gets the foot traffic and the generation of that is necessary for retailing. We also explored a number of alternatives, as I indicated right from the beginning, what we submitted and how it's been modified all along. We heard from this board some of the comments. We've heard from the health department. We've heard from the village board. We've heard from the planning board. And there's been changes and modifications along the way, and there's still some, but that could be considered with respect to at least the drainage work that I mentioned before. As far as the substantiality, again, this board will look at this, and even though you may say one or two of the particular variances may numerically have a large number, but if you take them in the totality of the circumstances, when you look at everything together, you'll see that they're not substantial, particularly when you weigh that with respect to the potential impact on the neighborhood or neighboring properties, as well as the environment, which is the next standard. Everything I mentioned before about the impact on the neighborhood also applies to the environmental conditions. This was basically a vacant lot for a number of years, no environmental sensitivity to it at all. And this board has already approved the addition, so physically there's already changes to the property. But again, the positive impact on the upgraded septic system, positive impact we're providing additional parking off-site in the village parking lot, I believe makes all our requests, variance requests, appropriate. And then lastly, the self-created aspect. Of course, everybody could argue that everything's self-created just by the fact that we chose to come for a variance. However, as you know, that it's not determinative, and basically the practical difficulties of developing this property is due to its size and configuration. No matter what you do on this, you almost need variances from some aspect Even the prior one-story building required off-street parking waivers. So, and they needed variances at that point. So I'm here to answer any questions. Elise is here. Hopefully, if the board agrees that I think the application and our submissions basically demonstrate that we can meet all the standards for a variance, and we would hope this board could move forward in that regard.
Is the service bar that you're adding, is that temporary in the season or is that permanent?
It is part of the outdoor area. Lisa, you can point out, it has a permanent roof over it, but it's open on 3 sides. So it's would be seasonal, as is noted on the plan.
Thank you.
I'll clarify that section of the code reads that no service bar shall be permitted, semicolon, all food and beverages shall be dispensed from the interior of the restaurant and served to customers at their tables by employees of the restaurant. So that's the
That's why
definition.
it's called a service bar.
And yeah, so I don't know if it meets the industry definition of a service bar, but regardless of what kind of bar it is, it's because it's exterior of the restaurant is why it's not permitted.
That makes sense. Lisa, let's go to you first. What are your impressions based upon what you heard last month and where the application has gone now?
So I think that there have been some obvious changes, which, and I think that maybe that for the board's purpose, you want to kind of think about, there's direct variances, and then there's the expansion of the special use for restaurant, and those are kind of like 2 different categories. What I would say that I know that last time there was a lot of hesitation around not having a seeker decision, and I do want to point out that that will be, like, the planning board is serving as lead agency and is taking that under consideration, and you know, and they are not, you know, that you don't have to wait upon their decision. You can, in your own decision related to variances, recognize that the seeker will be considered and, you know, and determined by the planning board. In regards to the different variance requests, I mean, so as far as the parking waiver, I think that the applicant's correct that the code and the comp plan definitely encourage the use of the parking waiver. There's not really another option here. As far as outdoor dining and the use of the outdoor bar area, I think that you can apply your standard conditions for determining whether the variance is appropriate or not. There is this site, their desire to expand the restaurant is limited by the ability to put enough septic, to serve the septic that's required for the expanded restaurant. And their desire to expand the restaurant is so great that they're willing to get rid of apartments upstairs and to have outdoor rather than indoor dining. And in the initial proposal, we looked at the dining that is now going to be outdoor dining, unconditioned, and will need to never be used year-round, is that way because it's the only way they can increase the size of the restaurant on that lot. So for that, you know, just to be clear, they can't make it indoor. So that is the trade-off. It has to be outdoor dining. And then they're constrained by the higher levels in the village of controlling outdoor dining, such as making sure that there aren't outdoor service bar areas, presumably because there's a perception that there's a rowdiness and noise factor and quality associated with them that at the time that code was written was not the desire of the board. You know, the same thing with, like, they'll remove the apartments upstairs, and that too is if the, you know, it's necessary because if the dining was indoor and the apartments remain, there would not be enough ability to serve the septic flow of the building. So that's how they get into this position. Now, the degree of how much seating is reasonable to expect to get out of outdoor dining and whether an outdoor bar is appropriate, I would leave to your discretion to determine, you know, based on your criteria, what is the appropriate requirement. But if you have any questions related to the design or the conversations at the planning board, let me know, and I'm happy to update you on those things.
Thank you, Lisa.
And just to clarify, it's the outdoor seating consists of 62 seats on that lower level, and it's 6 seats proposed on that upstairs second floor balcony, which is a slight change from how we heard it at the last meeting.
Okay.
How many seats less is this than last meeting? I think it's about 4 or 5.
4's been reduced.
Okay,
And
thank you.
4 have been moved from the outdoor balcony, and they're going to stay on the inside. So it's not a reduction; they're just no longer being put outside. Is that
But
accurate?
they're there now. Those inside seats are presently there, aren't they?
No. This is talking about the upstairs area. So
Okay.
it's being
On the
built
new-
currently as
on the new
storage.
part.
Okay.
Yeah, so they don't have permission to have seating up there right now.
Alex, is every aspect of the site and how it's being used today legal and permitted in terms of the outdoor beer garden, and do they have?
I haven't been to the site recently, but there's currently no approvals for anything other than the interior restaurant.
Okay.
There's no outdoor dining other than what's allowed on the sidewalk on Windmill Lane.
Okay.
And the expansion that this board approved was proposed for kitchen and storage and staff space.
Right.
So there's no additional dining beyond what has historically existed there.
So the seasonal beer garden use is that they are doing, is that legal or not legal?
That would require, my understanding, as a permit from this board, because it is a special exception use for outdoor dining. It's the same one that they're asking for here.
Okay. Wayne, do you agree with that assessment?
Which one? All of it?
Well, that the current beer garden use is does not.
When you
have
say
a permit.
current, there's nothing happening right now.
Well,
But in the
today,
past, I understand that the village, correctly or incorrectly, had given outdoor dining permits for that side area, which under the code, the outdoor dining is supposed to be out on the public right away. So obviously, we're here to get the approval for that outdoor dining now.
I guess, okay, so they gave permit for outdoor dining on the sidewalk, but you...
No,
No.
they gave a permit.
They did specifically for okay.
Yeah.
And that
So-
was also prior to John owning it. Nick, the previous owner, also had outdoor dining permit
Sure.
in that side area.
It just goes back to the local law 20 of 2020, right? Which says we can't actually hear cases when there's a violation on the property.
Right, but I think the board has also agreed to hear cases where the application would resolve that issue,
Mhm.
which if this were approved, that would be resolved
Resolve that
because they would have a permit.
Okay. Wayne, I'll be honest, I disagree with a lot of what you've said tonight. And I'm going to tell you why, and I want you to rebut it for me. The number one thing, one of the things I disagree with most is the talk about the comprehensive plan and how development is needed. And I think that our 2 previous variance approvals for this property demonstrate our understanding of the comprehensive plan and demonstrate our willingness to be open to development on this side of the road, side of the village. There is a point where that development becomes overdevelopment. Where is that point? That's for us to decide. If you want to rebut that now or when I'm done, feel free. But I think this application as a whole represents an undesirable overdevelopment of that side of the village. This board has been very generous to the applicant. But again, I think we are at the line where we have now hit overdevelopment and have actually created a practical difficulty for the other restaurant owners. So if we think about the 5 points and an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood, us approving these variance requests supercharges this restaurant to the detriment of the other restaurants in the village. And that's absolutely not what we're here to do. Finally, I just don't understand why 50 seats isn't enough. This application feels very greedy and unneighborly to me.
Are you looking for a response now? Or
Please.
Well, as I explained, you asked for how did it come about. So it's not about greed in your characterization of our client being greedy.
Okay.
It's a practical one.
Don't
It's a
focus
bit-
on. Don't
I
just
know,
focus on one thing I said.
I know, but
I said a lot.
it's about business.
Okay.
And it is about making sure somebody can survive in this business world and with the restaurants.
I mean, honestly, you just lost me because it's a successful restaurant and he can have 50 seats outdoors without having to come to us. So from 50 to 74, is that 24 seats going to make or break the business? I mean, no one can look at me with a straight face and say that it is. The restaurant is busy every night. It's a very successful restaurant.
And there is a certain break-even point. So I would just say that we're going into uncharted areas for area variances.
Yeah.
You're talking about economic hardship and practical difficulty kind of issues. If you want to get into a business plan for a restaurant and who's making a return on their investment,
Right.
and being able to utilize their property to the fullest extent possible. And again, what drives all this and what's driving all development in the village and what's limiting all development in the village is the health department.
Agree.
So if you ask what our client did to ask, his first thing is sitting down with the architect and what can we do on this property to make this a better situation? So the question would be in the alternatives, we explained feasible alternatives. Are you saying that this board will not grant a variance for more than 50 seats? And if so, then you're probably killing the project because they cannot make it economically. You can't do the requirement for the septic system that's needed here and the investment plus the other part of it is the whole parking waiver changes. We don't need the 32,000 and things of that sort.
When you talk about the economics of the building and the business in general, number one is not the government's responsibility to keep businesses in business. Period. Full stop. I don't know what else to say to that except that. I mean, 50 seats is a lot of seats, and we're talking about 24 seats difference, right?
Also, my office is on Main Street. St. Ambrose seems to do fine with 50 or less seats since they haven't been here for a variance. Argento, I think, must have somewhere between 40 and 50 seats. The veranda, the Mexican one on your corner, they got to have way less than 50 seats. These are tables where you're paying no rent, so.
Right.
All the other restaurants around here seem to be doing fine.
All those restaurants. Charlot, Tuto.
Come forward.
Yeah.
So let me just. Oh, yeah, no, I know. No, because I don't like to talk about it. John Betts, by the way, owner of Shippey's. Yeah, I don't want to talk about the other brands, but I will say that a couple of those places you have a couple hundred seats. St. Ambrose in the summer.
Outdoors?
Yeah, I apologize. One restaurant has a alleyway where they have I know the general manager there, they have 200. But your comments, Luke, on the, I'm disappointed having the word greed put against me. I find that's disgusting. All the things I've done for this community, the amount of dollars I've put into this marketplace, for you to call me greedy, I'm beside myself.
I've never been called greedy by anybody. I'm not going to compare myself to other restaurants. It's clear you have an agenda. I don't know what it is. But no, he called me greedy. I don't even know who he is.
Thank you. I would I'd just point out, when you compare the other restaurants, the outdoor seating they have is supposed to be as a result of the reduction of the indoor seating. And I would just ask you to go to any one of those restaurants and see if they're reducing their indoor seating to compensate for the outdoor seating. That's the biggest difference here. So when you want to talk about viability, you could see that each one of those restaurants are keeping all the indoor seating and trying to maximize outdoor seating as well, so that they can be viable and to make, you know, a return on their investments as
But
well.
Wayne, also we have to remember the argument about viability and the ability for the project to be viable is not a legal argument. It's a debate tactic called appeal to emotion, right? And we
No,
are
but I would say, if you go back to the area variance standard, what is the test that you're supposed to do? You're supposed to balance the objectives of the applicant with the detriment to the community.
Yes.
And that balancing test, we submitted that there's no detriment to the community at all with all the variances. The evidence shows that. So now the burden would switch for you to show how that is going to detriment any of these variances that you grant. The burden would be on you to counteract and say that all these will have a detriment on the community.
Well, to be fair, I have absolutely no burden to do that.
I think you should review the case law on that, because once we demonstrate
we will.
that, I'm sure
We're gonna go through the 5 points as a board, but I'm sure our council will agree we have absolutely no burden to refute your opinion. Eileen?
I would have to look at the case law to give you a definitive answer.
Okay.
But it is certainly something that boards have considered in the past.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I've done a lot of talking. Linda, I'm gonna go to you.
I have a very different point of view.
Please.
I have been to that restaurant and think that he's doing a fantastic job of taking our heritage and improving on it. And I think not only that Windmill Lane needs help, I think bringing people to eat and enjoy themselves is a positive for the village and for that area, because it's a wasted Windmill Lane is a wasted street.
I agree, and I think that was a large
things
part.
There.
That was a large part of our previous decisions, which I think you were part of, maybe the second phase.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that as I started with, we have seen the benefit of that development to that part of town.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I struggle to find the line between development and overdevelopment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great restaurant. Everybody likes it. You know, so I don't disagree with anything that you've said.
Do you think that 24 seats is the part that you feel would be that much noisier or that much busier or bring that many more cars to the area, or what's?
Well, it's, as a baseline, it's not allowed, right? So we don't really have to say anything beyond that. It's not allowed, right? So we go now to the 5 points and we say, we go through them. Let's go through them. Okay, so will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance?
I don't think it harms the area. I think it improves the area. There's
Okay.
nothing there. You know, after 5, there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
literally everything either closes or is irrelevant. The old fire department and the old AT&T building or Verizon building, whatever it was. I mean, the only thing that happens is on the corner. And that restaurant has not been able to make it. We've had many owners of that restaurant on the corner.
The old Basilica.
Well, it's that and it's something else and a
No, it's
Mexican thing. I mean,
Verizon.
Okay.
so, I mean, I think it's very hard because you have a very short season, as you know, for a restaurant to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to, you know, plan for the season so that you can keep your staff for the off-season
Mm-hmm.
in order to keep a successful restaurant running. And, you know, I think that economics, I know it's not our job, but I'm sure that they could go through the economics of how many seats they actually have, how many customers they have to serve in order to make it through the bad season.
Mm-hmm.
And
But I just want to interrupt for 1 second, and I know you're raising a point, but I think when we're diving into the economics and the business plan, that's like beyond the purview of this board to talk about, to be making judgments based upon potential economic benefit. I mean, I think our job, as Luke said, is that we're charged with enforcing and looking at possible variances that are before us and whether or not these are reasonable given the law, and then also how it impacts these 5 standards. So, I mean, I do believe that it's a very fine balancing act and that it's all, you know, in good measure. I mean, I do agree that what they're asking for is somewhat extreme overreach in terms of number of seats, but, you know, I don't see what the problem would be with 50 seats. So, because I just think that there's a lot of issues at play here too, in terms of, I find it very hard to believe that these other restaurants in the village, almost all of which I've been into, are like talking about 200 seat capacity. I don't take that argument, no matter how you're counting the seats, indoor, outdoor, whatever. I mean, this is a little bit of a chess game that they're having to play. So, yeah, that's where I come down on it.
Are you still talking about number 1? Are you
I
saying
think
that?
we turned into a broader
Oh,
discussion.
I was wondering if
Yeah.
there was
We
a
can-
detrimental
No,
effect.
we can
no,
come
I'm
back.
sorry,
That's
I
fine.
interrupted because you were talking about the first of the 5 tests. Sorry about that.
No. All good.
Okay.
I'm with Joyce. I think it's a great project, but it's too much of a good thing. And somewhere around what the 50 number that it says is more, it says here something where 50 is permissible. Around the 50 number, it fits within the rules. I think it's a positive thing for the neighborhood. And then it doesn't create an unusual situation of 74, which is 50% above the rule of 50. And this isn't
Right.
1 or 2, this isn't 5% over 50, which would be 3 seats. This is 50% above the 50 number that presumably was arrived at by the trustees for good reason.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand, again, that this board has granted 2 previous variances for this property. And this characterization that someone may have an agenda against something, just the facts fly in the face of that.
Are you going to discuss the 5 factors?
We will.
Okay.
Carol, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna wade in here. I'm not as perturbed by this as some of you are. Quite honestly, I'm more concerned. We have a comprehensive plan, but we can't get to that plan because we don't have septic. And here we have an empty area of town with stores that have been empty for years. And you wander around and it's just sad. So we have a plan, we can't get to that plan, and because of septic, and as a result, we have an area of town that's not even alive. And here we have a successful restaurant that is willing to invest in septic, willing to give up apartments that bring in money. They're willing to pay in to help out with the parking situation and create all these extra spaces and so on. I don't think it's a detriment. I think it's a positive for the village. It would improve the character of that neighborhood. It would bring life to that neighborhood. And I don't know that, I'm probably getting too far afield here, but I don't know that he has any other alternatives given this septic problem. He doesn't want to be outside, they've indicated in prior presentations. He would like to have an interior space in the restaurant, but he can't because of the septic, which is out of his control and not by his doing. So I don't view it as undesirable. I view it as desirable. I don't view it as something where there's another alternative because of the situation with septic. And I don't view it as self-imposed because he didn't impose the septic problem. I think we ought to take it and hug it and grab it and hope the other restaurants follow suit. Meaning, it's not that we're saying you get to do this and we're intimidating the other restaurants. We're actually inviting them. We're inviting people to this part of town. We're encouraging people to do this, right?
I mean, people, could you say that people are already there?
Excuse me?
Could you say that people are already there on that part of town? And it's a busy restaurant, right?
There's been constant challenges in keeping a restaurant on the corner, as pointed out, number one. Number two, Paul's closed.
Yeah.
Nothing's come in.
No, there's a new restaurant there.
Well,
Yeah.
all right, that's true. There is, but it's desolate. All I'm saying is, I don't suffer the same concerns that you all suffer, and I think this is taking that area of town in the right direction.
It's not in the right direction. It hasn't been put in the right direction by the past two variance approvals.
I don't know that I'm saying you can only have two variances and then you're out of luck or something like that. I'm looking at what's before us now. The current restaurant, the 5 factors, and where this will take us. And I'm pretty satisfied.
Okay, so I will say why I think it doesn't meet number 1, which reads, we have to consider whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variances. So to me, in the village, the supercharging of one restaurant by granting these things which are not allowed by code, and us overriding the code, does produce a detriment to nearby properties and to nearby restaurant owners.
Can I just ask you to clarify that? I don't understand what you mean by supercharge.
Well, I think, okay.
Are you trying to say this board's decision will create a precedent for other restaurants?
Well, certainly that. I mean, that just goes without saying to me. We'll have 4
So their circumstances are all the same?
Say that again?
They're all on Windmill Lane?
No, I think that if you're thinking of
They can get health department approval?
If you're talking about surrounding neighborhoods as Windmill only, I would expand that to be Windmill, Maine, and Jobs, and not Hampton. Is it Nugent?
Nugent.
Yeah. That's what I consider the surrounding areas, and maybe the most eastern portions of Hill Street.
Well, I'd suggest that if you were looking at the 5 factors, and that if you were looking at a restaurant that wanted to do this in the middle of Main Street, there you would have this is an isolated restaurant. There's nobody around. You're not going to be offensive to anyone. And it's consistent with the plan. I'm not trying to argue it too much, Chair, but I'm just saying.
No, you can argue. I would invite you to argue it strongly.
I'm just saying that the analysis on Windmill has different facts than the analysis sitting in the middle of Main Street.
How so?
Main Street is crowded. Main Street doesn't have a lot of space. Main Street has people right next to each other in terms of proximity to one another. This is an area, and Main Street is already developed consistent with the plan. And this is the reverse in every one of those things. If you're looking to develop this area of town, if not this, what?
But I take your point, and it was very well made, but I still beg to differ because I don't think that allowing this 50% increase in seats just because of the location and because we want to encourage development in the village is, I think we're kind of missing the point, and basically we're granting a number of seats because it's a more remote location than if we were like located on Main Street, perhaps.
Well, actually, that is impacted by the septic. In other words, it's not again, I don't want to argue this too much, so I'm going to keep a balance here, but they wouldn't be looking to be outside from their own representations in any event if they could have done this inside, right? And then we would have the expansion of space, and the seat wouldn't be as much of an issue. So the seat issue is compounded by the lack of septic. So if you want to meet your development goals and you're not going to have septic, it's going to have to occur outdoors.
No, correct. I understand all that, but I think it still comes down to the point that, you know, under this 116-23B, that 50 seats is what's in the village code.
I don't think any of us are against any portion of this except for the additional seating and the bar.
Could I ask a question about the seating, if that's all
Please
right?
do.
Lisa, am I remembering correctly that the health department regulates the outdoor seating as the same flow rate as the upstairs, what is called the cafeteria or event seating? That it's 5 gallons per day per seat?
I believe you're correct.
I think that's right. And if I'm remembering right, that area could fit, by building code, a larger number of seats, but it's limited by the health department. I'm just thinking, theoretically, if 24 seats were moved from outdoor to that second floor space, that would result in net zero change in seating, and you'd still be allowable under your health department approvals. Is that right?
I'm not sure from a fire marshal standpoint I could move that many seats upstairs. I know I could move some, but I don't believe that by square footage I could move 24.
Gotcha. I'm just wondering if maybe there's alternatives that the board might feel more comfortable with if some of those seats became second floor seats. I don't know if that changes your consideration, but I think the health department counts those as the same.
Right. I think you're close. If not, it's a very close number. And potentially, we had a meeting today, and we do have the ability. We could put more seats up there if we so chose. I don't think 24, but I think maybe 10.
Those seats would not require a variance, would they?
Those seats would not. Those seats would not.
No, the village doesn't have a limit on indoor restaurant seating.
As long as it meets the sewage.
Right.
And the fire.
And the fire marshal, obviously.
Right, of course,
sorry,
right.
both.
Right. I think with right now what you're showing is up to 22 seats there, and I think I had remembered discussing with the fire marshal that space could in theory hold more, but it's being limited by the septic capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I could do quick numbers. I thought maybe we could put 10 up there more, but I could run the numbers.
All right, so I think that what we've just established is number 2. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the...
No. I think they can't do it because of the health department, right?
I believe they can move outdoor seats to that second floor because that second floor is considered like an event space. It has the same flow rate as the outdoor, is my recollection. It's not regulated in the same way as indoor seating.
I thought in
that's
the
right.
presentation last time, they had a problem populating the second floor, given restrictions.
Yes, so in the last application that we saw, that area was proposed only as storage because there was no available septic flow to add additional seating. In this application, the flow is being reapportioned from the apartments to seating, and that's what's enabling them to do the outdoor seating as well as the indoor seating that's proposed on that second level.
I thought that was done in the last time, and they were still limited, sorry, thank
Nope,
you.
yep, it's currently, as it's being built, it's currently storage space.
Thank you.
Okay, so we agree that there are feasible alternatives. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. I mean, the math is the math.
Yeah, 50% increase, yeah.
Yeah, it's undeniably substantial. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. I think that is what I started with, where development becomes overdevelopment. That's for every board member to vote, you know, how they feel. And then again, like Wayne pointed out, number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Yes, of course, but number 5 carries the least amount of weight and really is not a determining factor. So, you know, if I'm being charitable to their arguments here, then I mean it's a 2-2 split, and how you feel about number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. You know, for me,
Is there any consideration for the building of a new septic system? So it's not really so, I mean, he's fixing the problem. So, I mean, he knew the conditions when he bought the property, but by putting in a new septic system, does that sort of alleviate that number 5? Like, if that's the problem and he's got the solution.
he's required to do that.
He is
Yeah.
building the parking spots, though.
Yeah, the parking spots, sure. But to your question, the sanitary upgrades are required.
Right.
This is not it's not a choice.
But it's required for the restaurant as proposed.
Yes.
It becomes a whole different project if you're going to redesign this and take seats out.
Correct.
In other words, he wouldn't have to put in a new septic if he just kept the same number of seats?
Yes.
Well, we
Right,
want
Alex?
the new septic.
Sure, because you want new seats. And he's allowed to have a lot of new seats.
Mm-hmm.
But they are asking for 50% beyond that.
Can I just
Come,
take 2 minutes?
come on up.
Um, 50 years in the restaurant business, and please don't look down on McDonald's, okay? I bought Shippy's to do something for my hometown. I wanted to change the dynamics. My hometown is dead. When I went away, there was no Sag Harbor. Southampton was the number 1 place. In 1976, when I went away, Southampton was the place. East Hampton, always been the place that had money. West Hampton was cool. They had some nice nightclubs. Bridgehampton, Watermill, okay. There was no Sag Harbor. Today, Sag Harbor, easily, number 1. Septic system. West Hampton has made a huge rebound. Septic, not septic system, you know, sewer system. Sewer system. Riverhead has made a comeback. I'm trying to do something for my hometown. I have not made $1 in Shippy since I've had it. That might surprise you, because you see the dining room's full. It's 70-something seats. The amount of regulations, insurance, and things that you have to do to carry a restaurant like that makes it very difficult. We're trying to change the look and feel of this town. I'm spending $600,000 on parking and septic. It's a lot of money. I've burned a lot of money on this thing. And yes, you don't have a responsibility for my profitability. That's mine. That's my responsibility, my business risk. But the way that we think sometimes on the boards impacts businesses. Enchanté, Red Bar, Bamboo, Main and Prospect, Paul's. These places have gone out of business because the cost of doing business is so damn high. You can't do it. You need seats. You need to have efficiencies. And everything I have done, I give sales from every single dollar that's spent. I've got a dozen charities I help here in the Hamptons. That might be part of the reason, but that's not the reason I'm negative in terms of profitability. So that's my reaction to the greedy part. I apologize for that, but I've never been called greedy. But you said some things at the last couple of meetings that made me go, what's going on? What did I do to deserve this? The restaurant's full, it's busy. I keep the prices low, I put big portions on the plates. I put more people on the floor to make this a special place. We have been booming. We've done great things in terms of sales, but we're not making money. And all I'm asking for is to make us competitive. Make Southampton a relevant place again, and we're not. And so that's my investment. It's not your responsibility to make me money, but it is your responsibility to make our village better again. And it should not be by putting blinders on here and saying, the El Verano, they're expanding, Have you been down there? They're expanding. The two retail shops next to them? They're moving in there. Okay, that's going to make them a lot bigger. Bamboo is being replaced by Zen. It's a first-class place. So there's dynamics happening in the marketplace.
I feel as if, and I agree with a lot of what you said, Mr. Betts, but I feel like you're making the argument from the day that you bought the building when there was nothing there. You have a lot there, and this board has been very, very generous towards you, right? So let's look at it with clear eyes in that it's not as if this is the first step in you revitalizing an
No,
neighborhood.
of course not. Of course not. But you're not looking about, it's my blood, sweat, and tears that are in there. It's my money that's in there. You're a guy sitting on a board,
Yes.
providing a perspective as to what we can do, what we can't do. And the things that we're talking about are not unreasonable. It's about making...
Whether or not they're reasonable or unreasonable is open to interpretation, but what is not open to interpretation is that you are not allowed to do them.
Yeah, I understand. That's why they're called. That's why they're called variances. Okay, and we have a community that has been handcuffed by the lack of a sewer system forever. Here I am. I'm putting big money down to try to make my place more relevant and make our community more relevant.
Your place is very, very relevant, and it's probably the cornerstone of the village.
But it can be better. And when you say it's supercharging it, I'm not. The back half of what we did before was just about making it easier for people to move, more bathrooms and all that stuff. We're not doing turbocharging the restaurant. When you take the total number of seats that I have with this addition, there's at least one, probably two that have more seats. I don't want to get into who they are. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But we're not really thinking about what everything I'm doing in this proposal has been asked for by the community. I have been open with them, asking for feedback, engagement, and that kind of thing. And so, whether or not it's 24 more seats, if that's the number, I have to tell you, the process changes all the time because of the health department, and I've been very flexible. Whenever anybody tells me to do something, I do it. Now I hear that we're just going in a different direction. It's disconcerting. I don't know how to get across the fact that we're doing this for the community, but I'd like to make some money. And you can't make money in a restaurant with 74 seats today. That's why these other places have closed. And so the seasonal aspect of this, where we take the beer garden last year, we had 70 seats in the beer garden, an outdoor beer garden. you know? And so we wanted to stretch that, get more time with that, and make it special. A retractable roof, a beautiful facility, make Southampton a bigger destination. We get people from all over, but you can't exist in that small facility.
But you're existing, by all appearances, very well. Your restaurant is very, very busy.
Yes, but it doesn't make money. You don't understand about, because I don't know what you guys do as individual business people or family members. The restaurant business is very hard to make money in. That's why I just gave you a list of places that have closed. You know?
Yes.
And so I'm trying to avoid that trap. Yes, I bought a place that needed to be fixed because after 70 years of existence, they hadn't put any money in there. Forget about the folks that were there before. They were served the community. They were good people, but we needed to do something different. And you know, I'm beside myself because the process takes too long. And you know, one way. You're not responsible for making money, but the process that these boards take and the development process are incredibly expensive, which is why some of these guys aren't here.
Well, I understand your frustration with the process, but you have to also concede that this is your second hearing with us, right?
For this phase.
For this phase.
Yes.
You've had favorable experiences with us twice now in previous years. You have now put forward an application that every single board you've met with has reservations about. And that should tell you something, not to come here and lecture us about how long things take.
No, I disagree with you.
Okay, I'm not sure you have to point at me.
When I came up here, because you called me greedy, you have a label on me that's not warranted.
Okay, you can be
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
John, you've also, Mr. Betts, rather, you've exerted considerable pressure on every elected official that you can to further your interests.
I'm sorry. So what is your program here, Luke?
All I'm saying
is, I don't. First of all, who have I put pressure on? Tell me about all this. You know, this is really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Are you evaluating me putting pressure on people? Or are you evaluating me trying?
I'm only evaluating this application.
That's what we should be talking about.
I think
not my greed.
The time that it has taken this application to work its way through all of the boards should signal to you that everyone seems that this might be the step too far, right?
The process or the application? I broke the application in half so we could talk about this part later because it had the health department involved.
So, to the board, I will say that I would be prepared to approve items 1, 7, and 8, and deny 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's very generous in terms of what the ask is.
Tom?
It strikes a very fair balance between a great thing and too much of a great thing.
Well, I stick to what I originally
Okay.
thought.
I want you to not feel swayed by me or anyone else and to vote your conscience.
My
on this.
conscience is, what they're asking for is good with me. I think.
Okay. So you're good. You're good for an approval on all.
Yeah.
Carol. You're muted.
I would approve them all as
Okay.
well.
Okay. So I'll just reiterate one more time. I do think this application is a detriment to nearby properties. We have shown that the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. We have shown beyond the shadow of a doubt that at a 50% increase, the requested area variance is substantial. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions, I don't think it will. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which, yes, of course it was, but that is not our determining factor. So I'll move to close this case. I would direct our board attorney to write a decision that approves 1, 7, and 8 and denies 2, 3, and 4. We will revisit this on the next meeting to deliberate further after we've had some time to reflect on this meeting and watch back on it. And it sounds as if there's something of a mixed vote, which is good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Luke, can I ask, just for Brian's benefit, when you talk about number 2, are you talking about the special exception use for outdoor dining or the number of outdoor seats?
Seats.
Just the seats?
Seats.
Okay. Just want to make sure that.
Yep.
he's
Thank
got-
you for clarifying.
Sure.
Okay. The next case. Case 3180, 30 County Road, 39A. Thanks, Lisa.
And while they come up, is there anything else that we might need Lisa Rickmers for on the
No,
agenda?
I think we're good.
Lisa, if you're still on, I think thank you for your help this evening.
Thanks for remembering me, Alex.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
It was a long one
Thanks
for you.
very
I
much. See you guys
appreciate
next
it.
time.
It's been a while.
Yes, it has. Thanks for having me again. Another late one, which is fine. Appreciate your patience.
Whenever you're ready.
Get that down. I'm just setting up to view.
May I interrupt with apologies? I cannot hear the speaking on the table, only on the panel.
Oh, I don't know if he said
Good
anything
evening. I
yet.
haven't said too much. Can you hear me now? I haven't said too much yet.
Thank you.
Hi,
And now, you're back.
how are you? So,
Carol, you didn't miss anything. He was just starting.
yeah, I was just. So thank you for having me again. Just a refresher, we're here from the directive from Planning Department. Originally, we did present to them, and they, at the time, didn't have any objection. However, they wanted the zoning to weigh in on our lots. We're in a very unique area where we have 3 zones that come together. And
Can you blow it up a little? There, thank you. Much better.
so we have residential, highway business, and office district coming together. The owner built a parking lot without permits, which he has now asked us to see through planning and zoning. And when he did so, he built it on the R 12.5, or the residential portion of the property. Last time we were here, we discussed the viable buildable area of that residential portion. That was the, that is this spot here. It's not really a buildable lot for residential. We are adjacent, and we can take a look at some of the drone views that we were asked to do for this presentation. We are adjacent to 7-Eleven, 7-Eleven parking, and of course, we're right off of County Road. What we offered last time was half of what you see for the buffer. So the green we had last time 4 feet, we now have 8. That would be here. We have 2 feet of area that's now, that is usable on the parking lot side, and we would have 6 feet on the residential side. And we also double our area here, where we had, this does taper. You'll notice it says 4 feet, 5 feet, and then goes further to 6 feet. But we doubled that as well, which was something that the board, I believe Chairman said this, the first presentation was, as you put it, a good first pass through, but you wanted to see a bit more there in order to create a buffer. We're asking for the residential line, just so we're clear on that, that residential line to be brought over so that the residential line is no longer within the parking lot, but we've now moved the residential line so that it's part of the office district, which is where the parking lot would be.
Wait, can I stop you? You moved the residential line.
Yes.
Did you have a lot line?
It's there. I'm going to zoom in.
Okay.
So that part of the request before this board
Yeah.
is to extend that commercial zoning through the split zone property so that it can be used for commercial purposes.
Okay.
This is residential right here.
Oh.
So here is where the request is. This is where that line is. So what you're seeing, in essence, is a request to move the line, this dark line, over, which is part of the, I'll move over, the office district.
Wait,
that OD line.
I'm sorry, which dark line?
Sure. So, residential is here.
Residential is to the right of your cursor.
Correct, is R12,
Okay,
but
okay.
right now, we're showing what we're requesting now.
Right.
Right, so this line is residential now. This portion of the parking lot is built on the R 12.5.
Okay.
And given its unique setting, where we have 3 zones coming together, and we're off of County Road, adjacent to a parking lot, of course adjacent to 7-Eleven, we're asking that the parking lot be maintained as it is, but that the zoning line be moved so that it's within the office district and not a parking lot built in a residential area, which is something we discussed last time.
Okay.
And
okay.
you remember this is a unique power that the trustees grant to the zoning board to extend the zoning boundary up to 50 feet for split zone parcels like this.
How come the, well, not that it really matters, I don't think, Alex, but why is it not an HB district? Highway business.
So part of the property is the part that's on the highway.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
office district extends from North Sea Road. And it's based on a setback from
There's your
North Sea
HB.
Road.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
so you see it there. I'll bring that down if I can a little bit.
Yes.
So
So
there's your.
Okay.
I zoomed
Okay.
in a little bit
Yep.
too much,
I
right?
got
So
you.
your HB, the structure and the curb cut and the building itself is on our HB. Let's hope.
So
hopefully
spots
I can-
1, 17, and 18 are HB.
Yeah.
Spots 2 through 9 are OD,
Yes,
and spots 10 through 16 are residential.
done.
Wow.
You're hired.
Well, I'm just I'm just beginning to get my head around it.
Yeah.
Are you guys all? Is everyone clear on that?
No.
Okay.
So, When in a situation with parking, you're required to have 50 feet of buffer. We understand that was put in place for a reason, and there are places for it. We don't know that this was the place for that, and if we needed 50 feet of buffer planting, it would obliterate parking, the structure wouldn't be there, and that residential, which we can look at the aerials, that structure would, the residential side would be just inundated. There would be no use of yard and pleasure from the yard because of the planting. Last time we were here, we didn't offer enough. The board and the chairman asked to come back with a better pass. We doubled it, which is what you see. And in addition to what you have there, you also have a fence and a pretty clean property. I would like to add, this doesn't come from any violations or complaints. In fact, we did have someone, it was a very late meeting last time, not a complaint. I thought your focus and attention was excellent. However, one of our neighbors, our closest neighbor in support, didn't stay. So I did provide a handwritten...
That's Mr. Kelly or Mr.
Yes,
Burkowski?
Burkowski,
Okay.
that's Michelle. And I did
Gotcha.
provide a handwritten letter she wrote while she sat next to me, just to say, I have to go, please take this and see if it's of use to you. So she's somewhat in support of what's there, if you will. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I did save that for you, and I gave you a copy of that.
And what does
Which I
Mr.
do
Kelly,
have here.
sorry, what does Mr. Kelly think?
Mr. Kelly is the owner.
Oh, Brian Kelly is the owner.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
so-
it's another unique part of this is that Brian Kelly has offered, as he should,
Oh.
to offer more planting on the property because he owns the property adjacent as well. He's the owner of Twin Forks. Yes. So it's another unique dynamic. So we are actually able to work with, quote unquote, the neighbor, which is the owner, to do the planting that you see in green, to create a greater buffer between the two, along with the fence that's already there. The curb cut and the depth of this also provide safety. As you just pointed out, parking spots 1, 18, and 17, great, but on a very busy road, if you pull in and out of there, if someone is pulling in while someone else is pulling out, you don't have the same safety or dynamic as pulling all the way into the property as you can now. So it's a nice, in that respect, it's a nice feature.
Alex,
Yes.
help
Oh.
help me understand kind of like what help us understand, please.
Yes.
The requests?
Yes.
Okay. So you have occasionally in the village properties that by the nature of the way the zoning map were created fall between multiple districts. That's because in this case, the zoning doesn't follow property lines. It's done based on a dimension from North Sea Road. That's how this small piece that became a parking lot became half commercial and half residential. So the trustees, recognizing that sometimes that this happens, grant this board some discretion in adjusting those boundary lines up to 50 feet. So if the board feels it's appropriate, you can extend that zoning line. It only would apply to this property so that it would all be commercial and could be used for commercial parking. The code also requires what they call a transition yard, which is essentially a buffer when you have residence and commercial properties abutting one another, and that requirement is 50 feet on the commercial property. You might recognize that from like behind Buzz Chew, how there's a very substantial setback between the commercial and the residential properties. As you can see here, this is very tight. This building right on the highway, 50 feet can't feasibly be accomplished. So what they're requesting is that those transitional yards be reduced to, I think it says, let me make sure I got the dimensions right. It is
4 to 6.
It is, yes. So it's 2 feet along the eastern property line and 4 to 6 on the southern property line. Those dimensions only include what's on the commercial side, because that's all that counts for zoning. the applicant has indicated that to mitigate that, they're offering additional plantings on the residential side because they own that as well. So what's going to be up to the board to determine is what being provided is at the maximum buffer that can be provided, so that's the minimum relief necessary, and is what's being provided on the residential property an acceptable mitigation. And so those, I think, are the key decision points, if that's helpful.
But Alex, if I understand it correctly, the residential property of Mr. Kelly might become less valuable because of this, but he's willing to do that to himself. So
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
no adverse effect. One of the tests about undesirable change, he's doing it to himself, right?
Yes,
That's well put. He has said in conversation, do what you can not to kill me on my side, as he put it, with too much planting, but I know that they'll have requests, the board will have requests, and so this is coming back with what we hope is a good pass at that. But yes, and you'll see it's very well kept. A lot of planting is already there. I did give you aerial shots and drone shots of that. He does care. If considering it's not part of what can be offered because it's on the residential side, if a covenant is necessary, again, not desirable because of what we're saying, but if a covenant is necessary to maintain that the next person buying and owning the property understands that that's not touchable, you can't, unless you add to it or increase it, I thought that would be something we could offer the board as well.
Yeah, all considerations. Like you said, those buffers are put in place primarily to protect residential properties from the, noise and impact from commercial properties. And correct, so these properties are owned in common now, although the board will consider at some point they may not be owned in common in the future.
But the next buyer in due course would be aware of this situation and would pay the appropriate price to recognize this advantage or disadvantage as the buyer saw fit.
It's tied to the property.
Well, that's interesting because it would probably have to be a restriction or a covenant on the residential lot, which isn't actually here before us. So how could we even impose that?
I mean, I think if it were done as a condition of approval, as a mitigating condition, that there be, a voluntary covenant on that property, I think that's something that they're offering because they hold that property.
Let me ask you this, Alex. Why is it to move the residential boundary east as opposed to west, as opposed to OD east or HB south?
So this property is split zoned. I'm talking about the property, that one square parcel is split zoned between OD and R12.5.
So HB can't even come into play because it has none of it on it.
Right. So
Okay.
right, because the HB follows the property line,
Mhm.
so there's no split zone property with HB. Although if it were, the effect would be the same.
Okay, so then what about moving OD east?
Oh, I think that's what they're asking for.
OD East is
Okay.
it is what you said earlier, and I know we're mixing around,
Okay.
but the OD East is the ask.
Okay.
You're
Sorry.
correct.
Sorry.
Yep, that's,
Okay, which seems more appropriate anyway for what is essentially a parking lot.
we hope so.
Okay. And I'm looking at the lot distance, 75.6, running north-south from the northwest corner of the residential lot, right? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, I
That
see
basically the square that's split zoned, has an eastern border of 75 feet. What about, say we created the hypotenuse of this green triangle? What about a buffer there?
On the OD demising line between the OD that's existing and the residential?
Like if we took the bottom corner of the green, where there's like that little 6 foot.
Bottom corner of the green.
Yep. Right, which is I guess the southeast corner of your parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
With you.
And then we went northeast to the northeast corner of the residential lot, right? If we drew a triangle there, if we connected the two green points.
Oh, boy, that would do quite a bit to the residential. So I'd like to just pull up I don't know if I lost my connection, but I would direct you to the drone shots, if you have in the packet.
Here?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, perfect.
Yes, yeah. So if we just look at, if you look at what you're saying, you could actually see it on the one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you don't have the
This is
the
the-
garage building on the or the house on the survey.
Yeah, whatever the shed or detached.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Well, that was something I pointed out earlier. That's the scary thing. That's the thing that concerns Mr. Kelly quite a bit, because that, understandably, with what you want to get
Yeah.
to 50 feet, that obliterates the backyard.
Mhm.
And when you talk about value and what you're giving up and the things that Mr. Kemner mentioned, I think
Mhm.
that would be a concern.
Okay. The gate that's currently there, from the eastern parking lot on the east side of the pest control building, south to the residential plot, that gate is going to be eliminated, right? Because you're going to have plantings in front of it.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
think it by default, correct.
Yeah. Okay, so move the zoning district over, give leeway to the required screening on both lot lines. Carol, what do you think?
I don't know how else you're gonna do it. We're down to necessity here.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to get a covenant from the land of Brian Kelly to run through this. Otherwise, if someone else buys it and they take the trees down and you're back to square zero.
I agree.
And having said that, what could happen is the next owner comes in, as so often happens with owners, and it's a reality, is they say, oh my gosh, I bought this property, I had no idea this covenant was on this deed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a
So that-
title. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were done. Title picks up on covenants and it's part of the file. We find that it's not a surprise. And also 6 feet of buffer in this would be somewhat desirable from the residential side as well. Not much to look at in that direction, so I think it's a nice hedge line and it actually provides some beauty and some balance. Buffer and some screening.
Do we have a tree specification?
Don't know if he noted it for us.
Looks like some kind of arborvitae or.
Yeah, it says, yeah.
Yeah,
Evergreen.
they're planted, and there's some new ones that were planted as well. I'm looking at the survey to see when he pointed to them, if there was, it says here, proposed 6-foot side yard and rear yard screening for transitional sides and rear yards, but I don't see a species yet.
So looking at the survey, I think we realized that making that giant triangle is a bit onerous on the homeowner. Are we comfortable with 6 feet?
6 feet's what's here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
My view is, as long as it's done where Mr. Kelly's deeds
Right.
has all the right paperwork, and Alex would know way more about that than I ever will, so that the buyer in due course knows what he or she is getting, then whatever switching of value among the properties is Mr. Kelly doing it to himself. So I think there's fairness there, as long as the next owner of Mr. Kelly's property residential property doesn't have something his lawyer can't warn him about.
And I think if the board wanted, the condition could also be put on the commercial property that the plantings as proposed be maintained, so that future owners of the commercial side will be aware of their obligation as well.
It's a very fair, good
It runs
point.
with the land, yeah.
Yeah.
That everything runs with the land and needs to be maintained.
Well, that the border runs with the commercial land, the border
Correct.
maintenance.
Correct, on each side, whatever we can give to each side.
You know, that's an interesting point. Who's obligated, when the border is put on the residential side, the R 12.5 side, who has to pay to maintain it? If Mr. Kelly sells his property, someone else comes in, are they now obligated to financially maintain that hedge? Or are we saying we put a covenant, as Alex is suggesting, on the business side to maintain that for the new owner?
My understanding is that each owner would be responsible for maintaining what's on their own property.
And now we're saying this residential lot, not only would it have this hedgerow in it that is legally obligated to keep forever, which is one thing, but they're obligated to maintain it. They can't let it lie fallow, or they can't let the hedges die. They have to replace them. You know,
We find that with wetlands and non-disturbance zones as well, that these things are part of the covenant, people buy into it, they understand, to an extent, they understand what they're getting themselves into with non-disturbance areas and what needs to be maintained. So,
Okay, okay, thanks.
thank you.
So I think it sounds as if we'd be comfortable approving the application with an appropriate covenant placed on the residential property, as well as the commercial side for the maintenance. And I would just also like to make sure that that gate is removed.
Understood, Chairman.
Okay.
Sorry, which
Thank
gate, Luke?
So directly to the east of the building.
I
See how
see.
there's a parking stall there?
Yes.
There is also a gate that could act as a rear driveway.
I got
And
it.
I almost think that a year ago or so when we were here, we might have even seen a truck parked in the aerials or something like that. I don't know. I may be misremembering.
Duly noted, and it will be, along with the other items requested, it will be taken care of.
Okay. Okay. Can I a motion to approve based upon that?
You mean to close for written decision?
Sorry. Yes. Motion to close for written decision based upon the covenants that we spoke about. And
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, a unanimous one.
Sometimes it happens. It doesn't have to. Okay.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
too.
Sorry we kept you so late.
No, and thanks for hanging in there, coming back, and appreciate the improvements to the application. Thank you. So now we'll go to 3194 575 Hampton Road.
Good evening. I will make this actually very quick for you, as after speaking with the present owner and the buyer, we have come to an agreement, which I have, unfortunately, I would have done this earlier, but I just got the survey from Squires and Holden, and we have become compliant by removing, as you guys had mentioned, removing part of the deck and scaling back the pool. So we have now a 12 by 20 pool. I'm gonna leave one of you guys because I would like to, withdraw without prejudice this application, but I just want you guys to have a copy if you would like it. But it now brings us into compliance. We are a little bit slightly under the coverage now.
Okay.
And we're basically a half a percentage point on the green space. So
Did you get that in writing from the building department yet?
I have not yet.
Okay.
All I have right now is, I literally just picked this up this
Okay,
afternoon.
cool. So, what I would recommend then, Alex, interject if you think. I think that you should request an adjournment, which we'll grant you. You can review this with the building department, and then just simply send Alex an email requesting a withdrawal without prejudice.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Yep.
So I'll move to adjourn for all purposes.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
You give it another date, or you don't do that?
Up to the next meeting.
To the next
Yeah,
meeting.
okay.
Thanks.
So Alex, he'll still need a variance for the 1%, or will this be as of right with that
It sounds like
survey?
you're going to be compliant and you won't need
Yeah,
any
no,
variance.
the pool, the whole pool lot coverage issue, we are slightly under now. The green space, we're technically at 45.8% instead of 45%. So if we have to finagle something come that time for that 0.8%, we'll
Yeah,
have
I
to
think you're
figure out.
definitely going to have to do that to avoid having to come back to
Right.
us.
Which is-
But yeah, so again, just to verify all of your new proposal with the building department. If they agree, we agree, and then you can withdraw without prejudice.
Sounds good.
Thanks for hanging in there all night.
Interesting.
It always is. And I think that draws us to a close. Alex, do you have anything that we need to discuss? We've adopted the calendar for the year, or for at least the next couple of months, right?
Yep, the next, looks like 4 meeting dates are noted there, so as
Yep.
long as we have a quorum there, that's great. And you can
Okay.
let us know if anything changes.
Okay, super. That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Carol. Thank you
night.
so much.